Welcome to the Sydney Entertainment Centre. You are with us live for the concluding game of the semi-final series between the Melbourne Tigers and the Sydney Kings. And this is going to be a great match. This is the decider. They're 1-1, and one of these teams will go through next week to play Sth East Melbourne Magic in the grand final of the Mitsubishi Challenge. And up till now, Steve Carfino, it's been an even money bet.
It's been an even bet for sure. Is there any way we can replay Friday night's match, because it was a great one? The Melbourne Tigers have been the dominant force in this series. The Sydney Kings had to shoot 74% from the field to beat the Melbourne Tigers, who only lost by 6 points, but the Sydney Kings have their crowd to work with.
Well, the Kings would certainly love a result like the one we had on Friday night. Let's have a look at the highlights of that game. Steve asked for it. Let's have a look now. We picked them up in the first quarter, and at this point, Melbourne were dominating. Dwayne McLean getting in there and missing the shot, which happened a lot in the early minutes. And Melbourne on the way back, and one of the big factors of that first quarter is coming up right now.
Andrew Gaze, look at that bomb right there. He's about 24 feet from the basket right there on that three. And he by 16 points in the first few minutes of the basketball game, and he was a true force.
16-4, as you see. Melbourne right on top. Sydney did not look like they had a hope until another key player injected himself into the game. Coming up very soon, we'll see this man, Mark Dalton, sink a big, big three. Now, following that play, Mark picked up a steal on the next turnover and then made a three-point play at the other end, and that got Sydney back into the game.
That's right. You see another three by Andrew Gaze right there. He was just unstoppable in the early minutes of the game, piling up about 20 points in the first quarter. Bob Turner right there trying to find an answer to Melbourne Tigers and Andrew Gaze, that's for sure.
Well, from this point on, it was very, very tight, but Sydney's inside game started to get going, and one of the reasons was Dwayne McLean on his way to 45 points, and here he is putting some moves on the defense right now. But then McClary making the advantage of McLean drawing the defense, and that happened a lot. McLean was pretty well unstoppable, and Sydney started to get on top. 68-64 there, but they were going to do a lot better than that.
That's right. This game had so many momentum swings. The Melbourne Tigers came out and were just thumping the Sydney Kings early. The Sydney Kings came back, and then the Melbourne Tigers were able to come back again. It was a game of so many swings, it was unbelievable.
Well, that was the half-time score, but it was in the third quarter that Sydney really started to get on top. And the coaches would have went away expecting big things. It was very tight. Some adjustments were made. Kenny McClary got an elbow to the eye, accidental. He had to look after that, but Robert Sibley also had trouble with his injured knee, for which ice had to be packed during that third quarter. And Andrew Gaze also had a bit of knee trouble, so the stage was set for a great conclusion.
Well, that's what's going to be key in Game 3 is the injuries. Injury to Kenny McClary's eye, the wear and tear on Andrew Gaze, and he's such a key player for the Tigers. See Kenny McClary with a turnaround right there. When he gets that close to the basket, it's tough to stop him.
As you can see, the closed eye didn't hurt him much in that exchange, and by that time Sydney had racked up a 20-point lead. Gaze looking worried, and Turner a little more composed. Andrew Gaze, he shot a big game. He didn't quite match the 20 points that he scored in the first quarter. He couldn't keep up that momentum, but he still was the danger man, and there you go. Melbourne had caught up to within 4 points, and this was the critical last few minutes where McLean is seen here chewing up time to try and hold Sydney in the game. Melbourne had all the momentum.
Well, it's very difficult to stop Dwayne McLean when he's isolated on the whole side of the floor right there. Warwick Giddey with a good defensive job. That call could have gone either way. It was a no call. Warwick Giddey there, a very good defender, but Dwayne McLean's the best in the business when it comes to one-on-one. 44 points there, matching his number. He was just phenomenal.
And that was his last point for the game, but it was so important because it was on the free throw line that McLean sealed it for Sydney, and they won in the end by 6 points. A tremendous result for them. The fans went wild. They were standing outside this entertainment centre for half an hour to an hour after the game, and you saw them standing inside as well. The ovation. Lindsay Gaze has to think about it all today, and that's what we've come down to. Mark Dalton, boy, did he have a big game, and we are set for another big game. The key players are out and ready. Injuries to worry about, but somehow I think by the time they get on the court, that'll be forgotten. Speaking of injuries, let's chat now with our locker room men, our sideline experts, Brent Rees and Dean Templeton, our special guest from Melbourne. He'll sit on the Tigers bench, and I think he might have some very interesting news for us.
Yes, thanks very much, Bill. Well, Sydney versus Melbourne, game 3 of the semis. I don't think injuries really matter much. One thing that will play a part today is the foul count. It's going to be a physical game.
Well, there's no doubt about it, Brent. It's going to be a fabulous game, and it will be physical. The Tigers are expecting a physical game, and they'll be ready. You know, they've had a pretty hard series against Perth and Sydney, but of course, I'm going for the Melbourne side to win.
I thought you might. Bill?
The Kingdome is packed. Tremendous effort from the administration to get everybody, all 10,500 people in here after only 2 days' notice. An emotional plea at the end of Friday night's game did the trick. Most of the people who were here that night straight away bought tickets for the decider. And thus, the scene is set. The Kings warming up. The Tigers are warming up. We'll go back now to Brent Rees and Dean Templeton to have a look at a couple of the key players in today's game.
Yes, well, Ken McClary, of course, the Sydney Kings man who was in grave doubt after Friday's opener with a swollen right eye. The Kings doctor, Bill Webb, told me that was a freak injury where the eyelid was actually pinched, the nerve in the eyelid, and it looked like it was a swollen eye, a black eye, but no, it wasn't. 24 hours, Kenny's eye was completely improved, and he's looking good. Robert Sibley was the other danger man. Of course, his left knee was the problem in game 1. In game 2, again, he's having a lot of problems with that knee. Dean Templeton, what about Andrew Gaze?
Well, Andrew Gaze is sore, but he's going to play, Brent, and you can't keep a good man down. He's going to have surgery when the season finishes, and hopefully that won't be today. But right now, he's ready to go.
Okay, let's have a look at the lineups now. Firstly, for the Sydney Kings, the home team.
Starting up for the Sydney Kings, Damien Keogh's at the guard there, captain Dwayne McClain, who was unbelievable in game 2. Mark Dalton at the small forward, Ken McClary pulling down those rebounds at the power forward. Dean Uthoff is their starting center. And coming off the bench, Tony DeAmbrosis, who played a great game. Then Peter Hill, Corey Reeder, Jody Austin, Tim Morrissey, and the coach is Bob Turner.
The Melbourne Tigers, can they go through to a meeting with their rivals from down south at Magic? Andrew Gaze at guard with Leonard Copeland. Can they be stopped? Warwick Giddy, Robert Sibley and David Simmons make up the starting 5, as they did on Friday. Steve Lenarden, a big bench player and plenty of height. Ray Gordon, Nigel Purchase, Dean Vickerman and Stephen Whitehead. The big three-point man is going to make up the roster. Lindsay Gaze, the coach, and the referees, Eddie Crouch and Billy Mildenhall. They had a big game, kept a lid on it early on Friday. Eddie Crouch has passed the 400 game mark and Billy passed 300. All is set. We're going to be back very shortly with the tip-off to this amazing third game in the semi-final series. It should be something else. As I said, a packed Kingdome awaiting the result. We've got some injury doubts. We'll know in a few moments just how those players are going to come up with those injuries. But certainly, there was hardly a bad player on court on Friday, so one of the fascinating things about this game will be to see who can take it by the scruff of the neck. We're looking at guys like McClain, Keogh for the Kings, and certainly Gaze and Copeland for the Tigers. Back with the tip-off after this. Here we go, live at the Sydney Entertainment Centre. The Melbourne Tigers at one end of the court. There you are on the right-hand side, in a huddle. Just broke away, ready for this game. Bob Turner, the tension for the coaches must be unbelievable. Lindsay Gaze.
I'm sure it's very frustrating for those guys on the side. I'm not sure why anybody would want to do that for a living. You have to go out there and try and figure out the strategy and overcome players and strategies from the other side of the floor. Very tough job for Lindsay and Bob.
Well, both players exchanging handshakes. It's interesting. There was a little bit of controversy after the first game. The Sydney Kings were making comments about it at the end of that game, but it all seemed to be a bit of a storm in a teacup at the time. I remember Lindsay Gaze didn't really know what all the fuss was about, but here we go for the tip-off. Copeland gets it to Warwick Giddy, and we're underway in the deciding game of the semi-final series, the only semi-final series still engaged, because the Melbourne Magic last night made themselves the grand final opponents. McClain and Dalton double-teaming Dave Simmons, so already the Kings' defense is pumped. Leonard Copeland on Keogh, and now Robert Sibley. Pivoting on his good leg, and this is Giddy with an open shot and sinks it. First points of the game to the Tigers. They're up by 2.
Well, you see the Sydney Kings making an adjustment on that ball screen. The Melbourne Tigers so tough at screen and rolling right there, and the Kings make the adjustment, but the Tigers make the adjustment right back and swing the ball around and get a good shot. Ken McClary on the other side, but Mark Dalton with the tip in.
It's locked together now. The Tigers' transition play. We'll see how quick they are to respond to the Kings. Copeland, nice moves on to Simmons, who pulls it in nicely and gets it off the board. But McClary on the breakout. Here's McClain. and travel call.
Really
against the Melbourne Tigers.
Really good pickup by Damian Keogh. Came up on Andrew Gaze. Andrew Gaze wasn't aware of Damian Keogh. Turned around. Didn't want to put the ball on the floor because he was right there. Dwayne McClain on the fast break right there with the dunk. That's a very good start for the Sydney Kings.
4-2. Utah dispossessed, but Sidley puts up his hand for the foul.
With these two teams, the first time they played each other at the Tennis Center in Melbourne, that was one play that the Melbourne Tigers were very successful at, was harassing Dean Uthoff at the high post right there.
Keogh, perhaps a little nerves pulling that one in. Damian Keogh has done just about everything there is to do in basketball. An NBL title is something that has eluded him. Sydney's offense working it. Another foul call against the Tigers, this time on Andrew Gaze.
Well, the Kings are doing more like they wanted to set out to do in Game 2, and that's patience in offense. In Game 2 was a bit quick for them, and they got blown out very early.
That's good. That's okay. Same result.
Nice move. Giddy dispossesses McClain, but Sydney will get it back from the side. They lead by 4 points to 2. But certainly they're starting better than they did on Friday night. And Melbourne, well,
watch the push off.
Very early yet.
Hands out of there.
Double teaming McClain, and why not? 45 points in Game 1. Dalton gets up and fouled on the way.
Both teams going with a very strong strategy on defense right there. Dwayne McClain had 44 points in Game 2. And the Sydney Kings, Mark Dalton goes to the basket right there and was fouled, but 44 points by Dwayne McClain in Game 2. And every time he gets the ball isolated on the wing, the Melbourne Tigers are going to double team.
Dalton makes the first. As we said earlier on, Mark Dalton had such a big impact on that second game at the Kingdome. And misses the second. Good rebounding. Simmons, he pulled down a lot of boards in the second game. Andrew Gaze working the play. They're down by 3, the Tigers. Copeland and Simmons again. Perimeter passing from the Tigers, looking for the way inside. Gaze goes for 3. Keogh down in back play. And it looks like Warwick Giddy will be the man called for the foul. Yep, pushing foul against Giddy, his second, and Sydney will get it back on the turnover. A very high fouling game at the Kingdome on Friday night. 4 already for the Tigers, none for the Kings. And already the Kings' pattern this year as Utah goes for the drive in. It's no basket, but another foul.
High score. 1-6. And 2.
3 fouls on Warwick Giddy already.
See Dean Uthoff right there making a strong move to the basket. He kind of lulls you to sleep up there because he's such a good passer, and he's looking to pass most of the time that you overplay him. The Melbourne Tigers have chalked up 4 fouls to the Sydney Kings, none. And Dean Uthoff goes to the line and misses the first one.
Only 2 minutes gone in the game. 2 minutes 5 seconds to be precise, and already 5 team fouls up against Melbourne. This is a pattern Sydney established a few times at home this year. The other teams forced into a high fouling game. Last week, certainly not the case. Last Friday, I should say, certainly not the case. Both teams had high foul counts. But this is more like the Sydney we've come to know at the Kingdome as Giddy gets an open, but now finds Simmons, a Copeland, I should say, and he cannot bury it yet. So Keogh gets the rebound. And McClain puts it on the defense. Dalton.
Offensive.
Yep, charge against Mark Dalton. No question about that. Warwick Giddy well and truly established.
Yeah, the Sydney bench very quiet on that one. It was as good a charge as you'd see.
Right there. Warwick Giddy had no choice. I'm sure he didn't even want to be in that one because that could have possibly been his 4th foul, even though it was clearly a charge.
This time Gaze drives to the baseline, and there's just nothing going right for the Tigers in the early minutes. Gaze put a foot over the baseline as he went for the drive. Sydney leads by only 3, but so far they've had all the offense. But that was good D because Dwayne McClain's shot was pulled up short. Gaze bumps into Dalton, no problems, and he makes the layup. So it's 5-4 now. The Kings, quick transition. McClain takes on Giddy, and why not? Because he's on 3 fouls. Reject from there, David Simmons. Yeah,
that one's on Dwayne McClain as he knifes through the defense right there. Nice hesitation move. Pulls back right here. See Warwick Giddy start to get in position right here for the charge. He's there. Dwayne McClain leans in, and there's the charge. Good call.
1 point in the game. 8 minutes 50 left in the quarter. And all the Tigers have to do is settle down. Sydney have had a lot of ball in the opening minutes, but it hasn't done them much good. Only a 1 point lead. Dean Templeton, your thoughts on the start? As Simmons gets in for 2 and puts Melbourne in the lead.
Well, a very nervous start by the Tigers. Obviously, these early fouls aren't going to do them any good with their injuries, and they don't have a lot of depth on the bench, but there's certainly no panic at this stage. They've just got to settle into a tempo to try and overcome this Sydney onslaught early on.
Well, they're doing pretty well. They're up by 1. McClain asking, and the charge is called against him as he bumped off Giddy. Well, Dwayne McClain was calling for the foul from Eddie Crouch before he made the charge.
I thought that was a pretty weak call right there. Warwick Giddy handling Dwayne McClain. Dwayne turned to the ref and argued a little bit, bumped him, and then got the charge.
Well, Giddy drives, and no basket.
That's going to be Warwick's 4th.
Charging foul again, and that is the 4th charge from memory we've had in the first 4 minutes.
And what about Warwick Giddy, though? 4 fouls in 4 minutes. That is real danger for the Tigers.
Yep, he had a big game on Friday, and he won't see much of a game tonight. Today, I should say, if that keeps up. And needless to say, Steve Whitehead has to be giving Giddy a rest in this interchange. Yep, Warwick Giddy walks to the side.
Well, the referee's definitely getting a hold of this basketball game. They're calling it tight, and they've got to get control of it because these teams tend to get very physical, and they want to get a cap on this one early.
It was at times a rough game on Friday night, no question about it. And even then, Crouch and Mildenhall did make a lot of early calls. Melbourne leads by 1, but Dalton's on the free throw line.
Despite the tension in this game, it was interesting to see at the free throw line, Andrew Gaze, Dwayne McClain and Robert Sibley all having a bit of a forum about the referees.
Be smart and play
7-6, the Kings back in front. And the Tigers on offense. We are yet to see the magic of Copeland and Gaze. Unleashed as Simmons gets a bit of space and makes use of it, but doesn't make the basket. McClain on the breakout. Gaze is on him, but jump time. But look at this quick transition from the Tigers. They're down by 3. Copeland goes inside, and there it is. Dwayne McClain, the flyer, with one hand.
A bit of a matchup problem for the Sydney Kings at the moment with Mark Dalton trying to match up on Stephen Whitehead, a super 3-point shooter, so they're going to have to make sure they get out to him.
Whitehead drives in. Well, that was for 2, and it wasn't too bad. 9-8, Sydney leads. But Steve Whitehead making good use of the lane.
Stephen Whitehead, they don't lose anything on that substitution with Warwick Giddy. He's a fantastic player and good role player, defender, and rebounder, but Stephen Whitehead gives him an extra punch on the offensive end.
Well, they're not giving Dwayne McClain an inch in defense, the Tigers. Uthoff lets it go, but McClain having no room at all as Dalton sets for 2. He had the time and gives Sydney a 3-point lead, and they've got to get back quickly. Eddie Crouch has pulled up play. Well, Dwayne McClain's still remonstrating with Billy Mildenhall, but it's not going to do him any good.
And he can't believe he didn't get that call on that last shot attempt.
Sibley back out to Simmons. Perimeter passing. Gaze for 3. It's nice, but it doesn't go down. Utah, fast break with McClain on Copeland. This will be interesting. Heavy foul from Copeland. The basket will count, I think. Yep.
Dwayne McClain on that drive right there. He has come to play today. Nice little shake right here. Copeland doesn't have much choice but to foul him. Gets him real good. Actually gets a lot of the basketball. Dwayne McClain fouls it up and puts it in.
Just enough arm, but gee, Copeland was heavy on that ball, but McClain still got to the hoop. And here he is on the charity stripe.
It was also a very important basket psychologically for Dwayne. There's no secret these two pride themselves on being the best one-on-one players in the business.
And they're pretty close, too, off the court. 14-8, Sydney leads. As angry as these two have been at each other during this series, McClain and Copeland have been friendly. Whitehead, oh, so close, deserved better. Keogh comes back for the Kings, and so far The Tigers just not having that extra ounce of luck, but they're still well in the game. Utah gets it almost.
And Whitehead was taking it right to Keogh. Keogh goes for a three, unsuccessful. But Whitehead's a youngster and just had no respect for Damien right there, and on a clear out one-on-one.
And did well. Gaze drives in. Oh, big reject from Mark Dalton, but the call will go against him.
Well, he got all ball on that one, but he got him with the body. Andrew Gaze made a nice strong move to the basket, mixing it up so well like he does. Drives right here, and you'll see Mark Dalton gets a good block on the ball, but got him with the body, and that's where the foul is called.
Timeout is called at the Kingdome. We'll go to a break with Sydney leading the third semi-final, 14 points to 8. Welcome back to the Sydney Entertainment Centre. This is live. This is also the last game of the season for one of these teams. The other will go on to play Sth East Melbourne Magic in the final next week. Dean Templeton, what do you think of the first 5 or so minutes of this match?
Well, 8 points for the Tigers to this stage is not enough, and Lindsay Gay spent all of that time out talking about their offense. He wants Copeland to become a little bit more active and look to score a little bit more on Dwayne McLean. McLean's getting off very early in offense on that transition, so Copeland may have the opportunity to score, but overall he's not totally unhappy.
Well, they're only 4 points down.
You get the feeling the Sydney Kings have got the momentum going their way, but they've missed some free throws and some opportunities. And the Melbourne Tigers, who haven't really got their offensive machine going, are capable of putting some points on the board in a hurry.
Sydney in for a 6-point lead. Brent Rees, what was the Kings bench doing during that break?
Well, basically, Bob Turner said, let's get our power game going, get the ball inside, get the ball into some hands before we shoot, and protect that fast break. And one observation, by this stage last week, as Leonard Copeland lines up for 3, the Tigers had 24 points in less time than they've taken to get 10 this week.
Turnover time, good rebounding from Melbourne, but they just couldn't control the ball.
They've got a couple of really nice double screens there. That one, Dwayne McLean was picked off on that one. Leonard Copeland missed the open jump shot.
Turnover. Sydney, the no-look passes. Didn't look at the Melbourne defense either as Copeland goes for 3. It's beautiful. So 16-13 Sydney leads, and Leonard Copeland cannot be allowed any room or time.
And you sure don't want to have him get started. He's capable of putting 40 points on the board on any night, and he's not going to miss 2 wide open jump shots right in a row.
They were his first points of the game, would you believe? It didn't take him that long to get into the game on Friday. Here's another turnover. What's Copeland going to do on Keogh? He's good. 1-on-1. And now the gap is down to 1 point, 16-15. Sydney back on offense. But this is still more of a Sydney type of game, lower scoring. And we'll compare the quarter time scores at the end of this first break, and there are only 4 minutes left.
Last 2 possessions, the Sydney Kings unable to even get a shot off. 2 turnovers. Dean Utah makes a drive. Can't come up with anything with Sydney Kings basketball.
Great defense, though, from Melbourne.
The Tigers have actually dropped back into a zone defense, and I think that's confused the Kings just for a moment. They're just going to get their act together a little bit offensively.
Come free at the hand.
I remember early in the year when Sydney,
Fresh 30.
they're resetting the shot clock. That's all the discussion was about. I remember earlier in the year when Sydney had a very good run. They'd lost only 2 games from memory, and they'd won about 10 or 11. And the zone was the fashionable way of playing them. But I think since there have been a few changes to that thinking. And here's another turnover. Good defense. It's working for the Tigers. Whitehead breaks out fast. Can't make the layup, but good rebounding from Gaze. And he finally gets it. 2 boards in the one play. Bearing in mind that he pulled down 10 rebounds in game 1 of this series. So Andrew Gaze not just a shooter, and the Tigers have hit the lead.
We're going to bring in Tim Morrissey there, the Sydney Kings. That is 4 possessions in a row where they haven't gotten a shot off. 4 turnovers in the last 4 times down. They can't allow that.
Sydney shooting 43% from the field, and the Tigers 39%. Sydney shot 70-odd% in the game on Friday night, but it was the turnovers that cost them. We'll go to a break and come back with the last few minutes of this first quarter. The Sydney Entertainment Centre. Courtside as Melbourne resumes offense against the Kings. They lead by 1, and we're inside 3.5 minutes to go in this first quarter. Much a lower score than the second game, I should say.
Kenny McClary with a big block. He had 4 blocks in game 2.
Keogh sinks the 3, but the foul had already been called. Foul on Leonard Copeland.
He fouls Tim Morrissey.
Well, Leonard is saying there that he was actually provoked, and he said to Eddie Crouch, "You saw it. I didn't see it, but when Tim's at the line, one wonders."
Quiet right now.
Yeah, well, Tim Morrissey's just been pulled into the game. He had a very, very physical encounter with Copeland in the second bout, I should say. And that's not an unusual thing when Morrissey's playing.
Well, anybody that's played sport realizes that when you retaliate, you're usually the one that gets caught with the foul.
Copeland on the ball. The Tigers still lead by 1. We're inside 3 minutes. Whitehead assisted by the referee, but it's questionable whether that would have gone over the side anyway. Whitehead drives. Nice moves. Dispossessed by McLean, who nearly wipes out Eddie Crouch. And Crouch, I think, was thankful that McLean had hold of him. Otherwise, he would have ended up in a few people's laps. Gaze will take it.
Whitehead takes it to the basket. Good clean take by Dwayne McLean right before he ran into Eddie.
So the refs even know it's a physical game. Copeland on the ball. They lead by 1, the Tigers, and this is nothing like the first quarter on Friday. As he goes for the drive, a lot of pace off the first leg as Morrissey pulls down the rebound and just controls it. Copeland beat McLean pointless a couple of times on Friday on the first move.
Damien Keogh wisely slows it up and waits for Dwayne McLean and Dean Utah to come back and run that very patient Sydney Kings offense as he launches another 3. But Tim Morrissey comes up with the offensive rebound.
Well, Sydney haven't scored for quite a while. McClary pulls it in, and luckily Sydney will get the ball back, but only because there was a faint touch from Sibley. But really, Sydney cannot get anything going on offense.
Well, the message in the last time out from Bob Turner was to slow it down, put the brakes on. So maybe this is what he's after.
Get the hand up.
A lot of their patience, the Sydney Kings, as Dwayne McLean takes a drive, and that's a tough shot. Dave Simmons pulls it down, is credited to the Melbourne Tigers defense. They're picking up on every defensive exchange.
Well, open for Whitehead, and it's off the hoop. There have been a lot of shots missed from both teams. The push is called by Mildenhall, and it's against the Tigers.
Well, Warwick Giddy, the only one in real foul trouble, but just about every Melbourne Tiger is chalking up a few. And a couple more minutes into this basketball game, there could be some real danger for the Tigers because they don't have the same depth that the Sydney Kings do. You could look to see a little bit more of Steve Lenardin probably.
We're approaching the 4-minute mark now where the Kings have not scored. This will be the first score, but from the field, nothing. While the Melbourne Tigers are on the end of a 10-0 run.
1:55 on the clock. Morrissey looking to make it 2, bearing in mind he's on the line because Melbourne racked up 5 team fouls in a very short time. In fact, overall, they have 10 fouls to Sydney's 4, and that's in the first quarter. Here's Simmons on the ball now to Sibley, and now perimeter to Copeland. Back out to Gaze, the jumper for 3. Oh, it's good. Andrew Gaze gives Melbourne a 2-point lead with 1.5 left in the first quarter. And Dean, they've coped pretty well considering that high foul count, and neither side's really got into a rhythm.
No, I think the Tigers are just starting to settle down a bit. They're playing some zone defense, which has really thrown out the Kings and forcing them to shoot the ball from the perimeter. But this foul count, as Steve Carpino said earlier, is going to be a problem for the Tigers as the game goes on.
Well, if Sydney have the patience, they can make them pay for it. But at the moment, they're behind. Dwayne McLean hoping to make it an even game as we get inside 1:30 now in this first quarter. There it is, 11-4 now. McLean puts the first down. This is not as wild and crazy as Game 2 was on Friday night, but it has all the tension of a deciding semi-final matchup.
Dwayne McLean with 8 points already. He's so difficult to stop when they isolate for him. That's why the Melbourne Tigers try to, every time they can, double team when he gets isolated one-on-one on the wing.
20 points to 20. Nice moves. Whitehead in there from the Andrew Gaze assist.
Another thing the Tigers are trying to do, whoever Dwayne McLean is guarding, they're trying to isolate him and make him play some defense and hopefully have him tired on the offensive end of the floor.
Kenny McClary gets in, muscle bucket, and it's 22 apiece.
I'd say both teams are pretty happy with their performance so far. Both teams not shooting a very high percentage as Robert Sibley stumbles on the foot of Dean Utah.
And unfortunately it traveled. Yet bad luck for Robert Sibley.
See right here, Dean Uthoff, that's where they get their feet tangled up, and he traveled with the basketball, unlucky.
So turnover, the shot clock's going to beat Sydney. Melbourne should be able to get another go if Sydney score off this offense. But we're approaching the 30-second mark in the quarter. Sydney must shoot within the next 13 seconds. Oh, turnover. Copeland's going to chase it. Well, the ball's just going to beat him, and Sydney will get it back from the side. So
the crowd not happy about when Tim Morrissey was going around Andrew Gaze, and he reached up. See right here, he knocks him to the floor. Andrew's on the floor. He's reaching for the basketball and just gets a little bit of his leg.
McLean fires it to McClary and finesses the ball inside. Melbourne looking for the quick turnaround. They're down by 2 points. Little screen there, but unintentional. Gaze gets after Keogh. Jumper for 3. Oh, what a way to finish. Oh, and down heavily. Morrissey put Gaze down. Keogh goes for the shot. It's off the metal. Andrew Gaze is looking for some sort of response from the referee after a clash with Morrissey. Believe me, hit the pine hard. 24-25 at the Kingdome. The Tigers lead. We'll go to a break. The second quarter live at the Kingdome. Game 3 of the semi-final series. McLean drives on the Melbourne defense and misses. Uthoff's rebound. The pump fake. And forces the foul.
Contact foul. No problem.
Foul against Whitehead. Bearing in mind, Warwick Giddy has 4 fouls up against him already in this game. He's not back on court yet, but in case you missed it, that's a little bit of trouble for the Tigers. 5 rebounds for the game for Dean Uthoff, who misses the first of the free throw attempts.
That makes Dean Uthoff 0 for 4 from the free throw line so far. And that could be something that the Melbourne Tigers 0 for 5 now. That could be something the Melbourne Tigers want to keep in mind, because he gets so many offensive rebounds close to the basket, they might want to just put him on the line.
Sibley on Uthoff. Andrew Gaze has been a big factor in keeping Melbourne in this game. He shot 2 out of 3 3-pointers, but both times just when Sydney was getting a run. The foul's on Tim Morrissey. The basket's down for 3, so the Tigers now go to a 3-point lead.
Both teams shooting 40% from the field as Leonard Copeland takes a nice one-on-one move from Tim Morrissey right there, putting the tough defensive pressure on him. As he goes up, you'll see Tim Morrissey get him on the right arm. Leonard Copeland still concentrates and puts it down and converts the 3-point play with the free throw.
28-24. The Tigers looking good. In the first quarter of Friday night's game, the score was 37-36. In this case tonight, both teams were 9 points below that as Morrissey tried the ambitious shot, gets it back. Keogh faked the 3, now he'll go for it, and it's wide. McClary's rebound. Uthoff. Sydney have missed a lot of shots in this quarter. I beg your pardon, in this game. McLean for 3, and that's down. Well, it took him enough attempts. Sydney within 1 point, but they're shooting 39% from the field so far in this match to Melbourne's 42. Jumper for 2, Gaze off the metal, but he'll get it back. So it's a funny sort of game. No real pattern as yet. Neither team's been able to really break out.
Well, the Melbourne Tigers on the defensive end are doing a good job at mixing up their defense with the zone sometimes and the man-to-man, throwing the Kings off as Leonard Copeland launches a 3, and Robert Sibley doing what he does best, going to the offensive boards.
But Keogh just trying to push that ball away from Copeland, fouls him.
Right here, Sibley going to Leonard Copeland. Damian Keogh reaching in, got Leonard Copeland across the arm.
Steve Whitehead on the ball, and this is truly a wrestle. Little screen from Simmons as Whitehead circles McClary. The shot is short. Simmons heavily falls after pulling down the rebound, but the Tigers will get it back. And there's a clash, Simmons and Morrissey. Oh, here they go. McClary and Sibley are onto it as well. Now McClary and anybody. Well, it started when Simmons and Morrissey fell. There was a bit of a kicking duel while they're on the ground. McClary jumped in just to separate the players who were running in. Morrissey got up and wanted to go on with it with Dave Simmons. I But when McClary came in, that's when everybody decided to have a go.
Well, the crowd's calling for ejection here on their feet too.
Well, it's been brewing. This has been brewing, I think. I think what's been happening, and Steve mentioned it earlier, is the referees have been missing the first foul and always getting the retaliator. They've got to start getting that early call, otherwise this is going to get ugly.
Well, we think Dave Simmons has had the foul called against him. Sydney's going to get it from the side.
I think
we have to have a closer look at that because there's Lindsay Gaze.
I think if anybody else fell on Dave Simmons, we wouldn't have really had that confrontation. It's just that Simmons and Morrissey go way back, and I don't think that Dave Simmons appreciated Tim Morrissey being anywhere near him.
Well, there's no way any of us could know exactly what went on the floor there because it was just a wrestle. As Keogh goes for the jump shot, it's short. Simmons pulls in the board, and now Melbourne are back on offense. They lead by 1 in a match that has just boiled over. Well, little elbow, Gaze on Morrissey, but they're playing on. Copeland takes on McLean, and I don't think things are going to get any better. Copeland forced into the tough shot. Good ball from Simmons. Got the rebound. He's pulled in 5 boards in this game, and that was a key one. They go ahead by 3, the Tigers. 9.5 left in this second quarter.
The Tigers back to the man.
Oh, McLean, but it wasn't. The hook shot didn't go down. Utah muscled the rebound and puts the ball down for 2. And then Lindsay Gaze has just walked up. We're going to have a timeout shortly. The basket's good. And now tech foul.
Right there, you can see Dave Simmons get Dean Utah across the head as he was going up for that second shot.
We'll go to a timeout and back with more from the Kingdome after this. Things are heating up live at the Kingdome, and the crowd are booing both teams back onto the court, but one suspects they'd be booing the Tigers. I don't see why. It's been a pretty heated clash from both teams. Brent Rees, what was the Kings timeout for?
Well, Bob Turner sensed the emotion of the moment now may light up the Tigers shooters. He said to stay out on Copeland and Gaze. This is when they could make a break. So expect the Kings to be even tougher defensively if that's possible.
Well, Dean Lindsay called that timeout. What was the story there?
Well, basically he just wants to calm the troops down, I think, and he wants them to stay with their stuff, so to speak, offensively. Be patient. If they get into a physical war with the Kings, they just don't have the ammunition to fight them, and they've really got to play their game and not drop into this physical type of stuff.
Well, the Tigers lead the team foul count by 14-6. Make that 14-7. Peter Hill's just checked into the game, and the foul was against him. 30 all at the Kingdome.
The Kings put in Peter Hill. Damian Keogh struggling a little bit from the field. 0 for 4, all 3-point attempts. And maybe Peter Hill can light it up a little bit.
Sibley, nice move from Gaze to get it to him. McLean jumped over Whitehead. Oh, dear, that's twice Steve Whitehead has deserved a 3-pointer, but Simmons cleans it up. Oh, well, he's not going to pay that.
He's going to get the basket.
Fouled after the shot, yep.
Robert Sibley right there on the offensive rebound. You see the shot from David Simmons go down, and the foul occurred right there with Tim Morrissey and Robert Sibley, and Robert didn't like that one, but he picks up his second.
Well, I didn't see much happening there, but anyway, the Tigers lead by 2. Sydney get it back from the side instead of from the baseline. But worse news for the Tigers really on that exchange was that Sibley gets another foul against him. That makes it 2. Here's Peter Hill, the 3-point man. It's going to be long. And now Utah, but he's rebounding well in this game, but still the shooting is not there. Sydney shooting 36% now. The only thing they've got going for them is that Melbourne is shooting 39.
Well, Dean Utah, you'd back your house on him. The leading field goal percentage shooter in the NBL normally doesn't miss those.
So the physical contact maybe getting to both teams, bit of nerves as well.
Well, the players aren't real happy with some of these calls, but it's the players' job to adjust to how the referees are calling the game. They've been very consistent. They're trying to keep a lid on this basketball game because it's so physical. See Tim Morrissey right here, and almost every time you go around the back of a player, you're going to get the foul called.
Gaze on Morrissey. Well, Morrissey's been pinged again.
Once again, They're calling these reaching fouls, and they've been really consistent with them, so the players are just going to have to stop reaching and adjust to how the referees are calling the game.
Tim Morrissey gets a rest. He's on 3 fouls. Damien Keogh comes back into the game, and we're just waiting for somebody to do something because these teams have been snapping at each other for the entire match. 8 minutes left in this second quarter. Gay's on the line, and it's down. So they go to a 3-point lead, the Tigers. Make it a 4-point lead.
The Melbourne Tigers mixing up that defense has really thrown off the Sydney Kings. They've adjusted well, and from game 2, the Sydney Kings shot 74%, and they're only shooting 36 now.
Nice one. Simmons blocked the pass. Here we go. The Tigers with 3 on 2, but Simmons waits. Robert Sibley. Back out to Leonard Copeland. Beautiful moves on Hill. The jumper off the metal, but now it's with Gaze. Well, he sets for 3, and it's down. Well, he just faked the defense off him then and had the time. They lead by 7.
A lot of trouble for the Sydney Kings because they can't buy one. They're not even coming close.
Well, this is ominous for them because 7-point lead's about the best either of the teams has done in this game so far. If Melbourne can get a run, and this looks good for them at the moment, they are going to get away from Sydney. Gay sets for 3 again, and it's not down this time, but Sibley was there to make it 2. So now it's 39-30, and this is just what we were expecting. One of the teams to get away, and it's Melbourne. 6 minutes 48 left on the clock in the second quarter. Sydney has to sink one. Hill misses, and so now Melbourne are going to get away. Copeland. Sydney have not sunk a basket for some time. Their shooting percentage is down to 34. The double team there, and McLean picks it up. Nice defense from Sydney. Kenny McClary.
I think he was thinking about taking a couple of dribbles back and then dunking it. Didn't look. I don't think he knew what he was going to do with it.
Well, the main thing is he made the 2 points for his team, and now another turnover. McLean to McClary, and he gets it. So Sydney back within 5. Nigel Purchase has checked in for the Tigers. And Robert Sibley's going to get a break, and here we go, double exchange for the Kings. Dalton and D'Ambrosius. Kenny McClary gets a rest. Well, Tony D'Ambrosius had a big impact when he came on Friday.
Yeah, he sure did. He wants to mix up this lineup a little bit of what the Melbourne Tigers have done on the defensive end of the floor. Throw a couple of things at him and make him change the D around. Good steal there by the Kings.
Dean Uthoff did it, and Keogh has the ball, but it was Dean Uthoff getting those long arms. As D'Ambrosius, wouldn't you know, he goes for a shot. Tony D'Ambrosius could have the ball from his baseline. He'd still go for a shot. Sydney are down by 3. This is a nice little run from them to try and block that big run the Tigers put on. 5:38 in the clock.
Well, just as the Kings did a few minutes ago, the Melbourne Tigers haven't gotten a shot off in the last 3 possessions with 3 turnovers.
Well, they're looking to do that now. Whitehead, beautiful move inside Nigel Purchase. So Melbourne 41, Sydney 36.
Melbourne getting a delay of game warning. Nigel Purchase handling the basketball after it came through the basket, and the next time that happens, that'll result in a technical foul because they've already warned him once.
Tigers just looking a little bit tired at the moment. They really need to suck it up and get their game together. Of course, that's only their 2nd substitution with Purchase coming in, and they really don't have the bench to go all night, but it's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, considering they did play just 2 days ago, of course. Dean Uthoff gets the inside bucket, and Sydney get to within 3 points again, but quick turnaround from the Melbourne Tigers. Copeland. Gaze has been in this game up to his eyeballs. Nicely kept in play, and it's going to be a Sydney ball, but it was close. Well, Andrew Gaze, there's no doubt about him. Keogh sets himself for 3. It's down! And the game is locked at 41 points. And Lindsay Gaze makes sure that the run stops there, at least for now. He's pulled his team to the benches for a timeout. Well, what an amazing exchange. Melbourne went for a 9-point run. Now Sydney have levelled, and we'll be back with more of this great game after this. The Sydney Kingdom in the grip of semi-final fever. This is tough. 41 points all. In the last couple of minutes, we've seen Melbourne break out by 9 and Sydney reel them back. What a game. Lindsay Gaze, well, here's an intercept from D'Ambrosius. Melbourne are going to get it back. Dean Templeton. Oh, hang on a minute. Lindsay Gaze is having a lot to say there to Nigel Purchase as Melbourne resumes the offence. Dean, what was the call from Lindsay?
Well, basically, he called that timeout just to settle the guys down and let them get their breath. He knows that they're tired, and that's what's forcing those turnovers. Fresh legs like D'Ambrosius come in, and all of a sudden it changes the complexion of the game. They've got to settle and get their patience.
Reject from Sydney on the Purchase drive, but Steve Whitehead, cool as you please, makes it 2, and that's how much the Tigers lead Sydney by. Dean, Brent Rees, I should say, what was the Sydney bench saying?
A fairly technical timeout on some defensive adjustments, but the main message was he threw down the edict to the team. No more three-pointers until half-time.
Yeah, there was a lot of three-point attempts, and that pass went wide. Sure, there's got to be some fatigue on both sides. Both teams shooting 44% at the moment, so Sydney's obviously lifted. But the personal stats, Mark Dalton's not doing too bad from his 3 attempts. He's made 2 of them, but... Oh, there's the alley-oop play, but it didn't come off. Well, the Kings fans loved it, but... Well, there's another 3 from Keogh, just as Turner didn't want. But D'Ambrosius got the rebound and the 2. Well, Damien Keogh sank some huge 3s on Friday, but he's shooting 1 from 6 from the 3-point line tonight. You get the feeling he's just trying to get his eye in. Well, just Andrew Gaze got his eye in. He got someone's elbow in his eye on that exchange, and Melbourne have turned the ball over. Dean, did you catch what happened to Andrew on that one?
He just got a finger in the eye there, Bill. I think he's okay, but the Tigers really need to settle down here. That missed alley-oop won't do their emotion much good.
Well, Utah's got that rebound. And the foul goes against Melbourne. Well, you just saw the turnover stats. They're very tight, but the foul count is certainly not tight. The foul against number 25, Dave Simmons, 16-9, the team foul count against the Tigers, of course. Giddy's on 4. Dave Simmons has just moved up to 4 as well.
It's on their replay right there. David Simmons got him while he was on the ground. We didn't catch that one, but Dave Simmons picks up his 4th.
And Dean Utah goes to the free throw line, where he's shooting 1 from 5. And it's down, but a little shaky. Dean Utah's been very strong on the boards tonight. That's where they really wanted him to assert himself. He's pulled down 5 offensive rebounds. A lot of second chance baskets there. 3 on defense compared to Sibley, who's the best marginally for Melbourne.
Tony D'Ambrosius, active on the offensive boards, picks up another one, his 3rd offensive rebound in a short period of time.
Lindsay Gay's an unhappy man. Just clarifying, Sibley with 7 rebounds altogether. David Simmons has 6. But it's the foul count at the moment that's hurting Melbourne, and that's where D'Ambrosius has been sent for this free throw. 5 fouls each already in the second quarter, although there's only 2 minutes 50 left. D'Ambrosius, he was willing that ball in. He started following it to the bucket because it looked short to everybody, even him.
Well, this guy's really turned out to be the X-factor for the Kings in the playoffs. He's a young man who says he prefers to play in the big games because he feels pressure when he plays when the Kings play weaker opponents, but he has to perform. But he's certainly risen to the occasion in the semi-finals.
He's a very emotional player. He's come on a few times this year and revved up the team. On other times he's made a couple of early mistakes and it's thrown him off, but he's had an impact. 45-43, Sydney leads, and Melbourne is working the perimeter attack. Nice moves, Whitehead and Copeland, which leaves Purchase free. The beautiful bounce, and Sibley gets underneath. Good offense from Melbourne. They square the game with 2.5 on the clock.
Nice pass by Nigel Purchase. He's probably played more in the playoffs than he has for most of the year, just like Tony D'Ambrosius, and making just as good an impact and contributions for the Melbourne club.
Well, as Dean Templeton pointed out, Melbourne's depth is a little problem, but Purchase looking to lift, and so does a guy like Steve Lenarden, who's come on and done some good things in a few minutes in this series. Well, that basket shouldn't count, but another foul call, and this time it's against Purchase. So Nigel Purchase has now moved to 2 fouls.
See right here, he's just got his hands on Dwayne McClain, and you can't handle somebody like that trying to get a charging foul. and get Dwayne McClain to pick up his 3rd foul, but that's really a pretty silly foul. You don't want to foul somebody when they're not even in a scoring position.
Well, McClain showed the patience then that he didn't have earlier, because he was looking for a call in a similar situation in the opening minutes, didn't get it, and in the end finished up getting booked for a charge. So McClain sunk 1 to put Sydney in the lead by that margin. He's shooting 75% from the stripe, which is a lot better than the teams are shooting from the field. Sydney by 2 at the Kingdome. 2 minutes or just over left in this second quarter. Copeland on McClain, and Whitehead and Copeland have done a few little 1-2s on the outside today, I should say. Sibley goes for the bucket. He's dispossessed, but Copeland cleans up and does well to get the shot off even. Good rebounding all round from the Tigers. They were just everywhere, and Copeland tips it in. Dalton has a bit to say. Sydney's defense. And there's Bob Turner. Just wondering where this game's going to go. At the moment, it's locked up at 47 points all. Both teams shooting 43%. D'Ambrosius goes for the drive. Now, questionable whether that was going to be a shot or not. But both teams have 5 fouls up.
One thing that Tony does very well, he goes very strong to the basket. Runs right into Sibley right there. But one thing he's got to work on is being able to go under control to the basket and change direction when the defense is already set.
Counting down to the final minute, Gaze on offense to Nigel Purchase. Beautiful 1-2, and Gaze puts it down. Andrew Gaze shooting a 19-point game. 10 points for Leonard Copeland. Gaze the best shooter by far on the court at the moment.
One person that can find Andrew Gaze for easy baskets is Nigel Purchase. They've been playing together, I think, ever since they could walk.
In fact, Steve, Andrew Gaze is going to marry Nigel Purchase's sister, as we see D'Ambrosius again make a basket from the baseline. The Tigers at the moment have got 4 guards out on the floor with only 1 inside player in Sibley. They're playing a lot of perimeter stuff.
I thought you were going to say he's going to marry Nigel Purchase, Brent. Anyway, it's 49 all inside the last minute. Foul called against Damien Keogh. So Bob Turner not too happy. This game is going to be very tight at halftime, but a very low scoring game. Gaze puts it down. Sydney catching up on the foul count. It's 18-11 now. Timmy Morrissey's in trouble on 3, but then again, there are 2 Tigers on 4, Giddy and Simmons. Gaze makes it 2 from 2. He rarely misses from there. In fact, he's made 6 points from the free throw line without missing in this game today. Keogh walks it back with Dalton. The 1-2 and into D'Ambrosius. Looking for options, and there are none inside. So McClain looks to get round, runs into a brick wall, gets the shot off, but it's not down, and the tip in.
Tony D'Ambrosius.
Well, Melbourne's got 13 seconds to shoot and lead into half-time. It's all square at 51 points. Leonard Copeland, they're winding the clock down savagely here. So Copeland drives, beautiful moves, and Sydney will get it. They'll have to go for some ambitious shot, but it's too late anyway. And so we go to half-time at 51 all. This game is tight. There's no question about it.
Yeah, right there, Lindsey Gay is not happy about that last drive. Leonard Copeland went to the basket. They felt that he was hammered. Went down there, a lot of attention there. Lindsey can't believe it. You can see his disgust right there as he goes for his halftime break.
He hasn't been a happy coach for the whole game, actually, Lindsey Gaze. There he goes, walking to the tunnel. And we'll go to a break and come back and have a look at this eventful first half in the deciding game between the Tigers and the Kings semi-final series. Welcome back. We're live at the Sydney Entertainment Centre for this amazing semi-final matchup, the third and deciding game between the Melbourne Tigers and the Sydney Kings. Steve, a very hard game to call at the moment. They've both made mistakes, a high foul count, low shooting percentage as well, although that seems to be picking up.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with nerves and the fact that it's a very physical ball game. Both teams have come out and made adjustments on the defensive end of the floor, and the offenses are struggling a little bit. You can tell in the shooting percentage, they're missing shots they normally would make.
Let's have a look at some of the on-court entertainment before we check out the match statistics. We've got the Coca-Cola team Manly Blades, who are actually the guys that you will see in the Coca-Cola commercials that are running in the new summer season. And they're pretty good. They dunk the ball better than we do, with a little bit of assistance. So great entertainment here at half-time in the Sydney Kings Melbourne Tigers game. Let's have a look at the stats for that first half.
Right,
51 all is the score.
And it's been a close game. Look at the stats, too, and that proves it. 45% for the Kings and 43. Like we said before, it's largely due to the defensive effort that both teams are putting on the offensive team, the Tigers and the Kings. Free throws, Melbourne Tigers are perfect at 100%. The Sydney Kings at 62. That could show late in the game because I'm sure it's going to be a tight one all the way to the finish. The Melbourne Tigers have been really working on the boards, and it shows right there, out-rebounding the Sydney Kings. And the turnovers are down from last game in game 2.
Tremendous performance there from the Tigers on the boards. Here's the scoring situation. Andrew Gaze, as you would expect, has had a big impact on the game with 21 points. Not a lot of depth after that. They've worked pretty hard on Copeland today, the Kings. He's got 10, and the others pretty well backing up with single figures for Sydney. Well, they've shared the scoring a lot, haven't they? McLean on 14 and Tony D'Ambrosius.
Tony D'Ambrosius has been a fantastic addition to the Kings, especially in the playoffs. He's doing a job for them.
And we have to mention the foul count as well, something you didn't see on the graphics there, but it is 18-11 in favour of the Tigers, or we should really say against the Tigers, because it may work against them later in the game, because we've got Simmons and Warwick Giddy both on 4, and that's a problem, because they're two of their better, well, at least Simmons is one of their better rebounders.
Right, they've got to make the adjustments to the way the referee's making the calls, and they can't play that physical game if they're in foul trouble, and that could be a telling tale in the second half.
Well, it's been a seesawing game, very tight all the way. Both teams had a bit of a run late in that second quarter. Let's have a look at some of the highlights, though, from early in this match.
Right there, Melbourne Tigers start off with the tip, just like they wanted to do. They come out there, and Dwayne McLean gets the ball to Kenny McClary. A nice tip from Mark Dalton right there, and that's something that the Sydney Kings want to do. They want all their players to be very aggressive on the offensive end of the floor. Right here, Kenny McClary kicks it out to Dwayne McLean. Good start by Dwayne McLean with the dunk there, and picking up where he left off in game 2.
Well, Sydney began this game so well, and yet they didn't have anything to show for it on the scoreboard. They were virtually just 2 points clear at the best.
That's right, a couple of missed free throws. We see Andrew Gaze launching a long one up. Right there, Warwick Giddy picked up one of his 4 fouls that he had. He knocked Damian Keogh over there. But the Melbourne Tigers, you get the feeling they're so explosive, and they haven't gotten their offense going. The Sydney Kings just seem to be a little bit lackadaisical on the offensive end of the floor, largely due to the Melbourne defense. They've adjusted and they're making the Sydney Kings do other things and go to different options that they don't want to go to.
Both teams really cranked it up. Andrew Gaze has been a big factor. If it hadn't been for him, the Tigers would have been looking at probably a 10-point deficit at half-time. He got some key baskets, not only racked up the points, but he got them at the right time as well.
Dave Simmons misses one there, but he's been a key factor. Dean Utah gets it out to Dwayne McLean for another one of his spectacular leaping dunks. Like him and Leonard Copeland are the best dunkers in the league.
Utah, in fact, has pulled down some good boards in this game. He's got 5 on offense, and that's been very important for Sydney. 3 in defense. The next best to that in the game has been Copeland, I beg your pardon, Simmons with 3 and 3. And Sibley's done a good job too with 2 and 5. Here's McLean breaking out the one-on-one with Copeland, and well, when you see McLean take on Copeland and vice versa, they both find it's a good matchup, but both of them very strong on offense. Big reject from Dalton there, but he just happened to pick up the foul.
And Andrew Gaze, he'll be showing a little wear on. If they do make it to the finals, that could be tough because he's been taking a lot of hard knocks, and he has to do a lot for the Melbourne Tigers to win.
It was a very fiery first half too. We saw it simmering early on, but then it exploded in the second quarter. We kind of expected this, but we'll have a look at how it all happened. It started when Morrissey fell on top of Dave Simmons. Now Morrissey went over, and they're kicking at each other here on the ground, and Morrissey didn't like the fact, and there's Simmons kicking him in the chest, and McClary came in, fired up and put one on Sibley there. Wasn't very good, wasn't a punch, but a bit of a smack in the chops. and they all started arguing, and that's the trouble. When someone buys into a brawl, it all happens, doesn't it?
It all happens. This game means so much. It's a do-or-die situation. If you win, you go on. If you lose, you're out. And so there's going to be some emotion down there, and if there's some heavy contact, you don't want it to happen again. So that's going to happen.
And who said basketball wasn't a contact sport?
Oh, non-contact sport. There are no punches thrown, but no blood, no harm, I guess.
All right. Well, we're going to go to a break shortly, and we'll come back very soon with some more locker room reports from Brent Rees and Dean Templeton. In the meantime, though, let's have a look at the atmosphere at the Kingdome. We've got a full house. There was a real plea from Mike Grableski, the Kings chairman, after Game 2 on Friday night for everyone to come back. They sold a lot of tickets that night, and a lot more came through to buy tickets over the next couple of days. And so we do have a packed house here at the Kingdome. We'll go to a break with the Slam Dunks.
It's the Mitsubishi Slam Dunk Competition of the Year, where you could be the lucky winner of this magnificent Mitsubishi SE Magna station wagon. For your chance to win this great Mitsubishi car, just put our 4 Slam Dunks of the Year in the order you think our expert judges will, and the car could be yours. Dunk A is a reverse slam by Dwayne McLean from the match between the Kings and the Wildcats. Second dunk, Dunk B, stars Chris Harris from the Geelong Supercats in their match at the Snake Pit against the Illawarra Hawks. Dunk C stars Andre Moore in the clash between the Brisbane Bullets and the Canberra Cannons in Brisbane. And finally, Dunk D is Leonard Copeland from the Melbourne Tigers versus Illawarra Hawks game. On the back of an envelope, place the dunks in the order you think our judges will. And send your entry to the Mitsubishi Slam Dunk Competition, Post Office Box 24, Broadway, 2007. Entries close on Thursday, the 29th of October. It's your chance to be a winner. Just be part of 10's basketball action right here on Network 10.
They're about to tip off in the third quarter here at the Kingdome. The Sydney Kings and the Melbourne Tigers locked at 51 points in this deciding game. It's been played at a hectic pace. It's been played ferociously. Players still exchanging pleasantries. Warwick Giddy is going to be back on court for this quarter. He's sitting on 4 fouls. Dave Simmons is also back, and he has 4. I wonder if Sydney might just target them. We'll go to some locker room reports now. Firstly, from Dean Templeton for the visitors.
Yes, well, in the Tigers locker room, Lindsay Gaze is obviously very concerned about that foul count, but he also wants his players to be very committed in this half. He wants all the bench players to be prepared to come in and give some of the starters a rest. And he finished off by saying, run the ball back at the Kings as much as possible. And the last thing he said to the guys was go out there and have some fun. So let's see if they do.
That's not a bad thing to say. Brent Rees.
Well, Bob Turner wanted more movement at the offensive end. He said they were very stagnant, which I think we'd all agree with. As Kenny McClary picks up a foul there, he wants his side to exploit that zone, which has done so much damage, and that we can read into that some outside shooting that'll come in this quarter. He said second and third passes off the 4th pass, that's when we work for the good shot offensively. He said we've given up too many easy shots, make them work hard and guard against that fast Melbourne Tigers transition.
We're talking about outside shooting. Sydney have made 2 from 9 in the game so far. 2 from 9 from 3-point range, so they want to find their range if they're going to make buckets from out there. Copeland in and out. The Tigers have a 1-point lead, and the foul count just tilts a little back towards them. Dalton goes for a 3-point shot, and it's down. Well, that improves the stats a bit. That's his first attempt tonight, and he gets it.
Mark Dalton gets his feet set. He's very capable of hitting that 3. He hits it all the time in training. If you leave him open, he can drop it.
54-52. Sydney leads. Dave Simmons in and out. Bad luck. And McClary brings it back. Simmons stayed up for the pressure, but he was the only one. McLean. And now Melbourne dropping back. Dalton goes for the drive. Hands off to McClary, who controls it well and gets it in off the paint, off the glass, I should say. 56-52.
That was just brute strength right there. He had a bit of a tussle with Warwick Giddy, and the strength of Kenny McClary took over.
Nice moves, Copeland. He gets in off the board, but no go. And on the breakout, Dwayne McLean. Nice little run from from Sydney at the start of the third quarter. They lead by 6 points, and here's McLean.
Dwayne McLean with the dunk right there. The Kings have the luxury of letting Dwayne McLean go as Damian Keogh picks it up. 2-on-1, 3-on-1. And
the travel, and the ball went over the baseline anyway. So Sydney, one pass too many. They had too many guys up there. That was their problem.
Well, the problem was they had 3 people on a 3-on-1 break, and they were all bunched together. You have to spread it out and make the defense either play the ball or play the pass.
Well, will the Tigers make them pay? Sydney could have pinched an 8-point lead with that offense. Now Melbourne might cut the gap to only 4. Sibley just inside. Ah, nice bucket. He had the time, and so Melbourne have done what they set to do. Good defense, and the margin is now 58-54. Dalton. Giddy just got the hand in. Sydney's offense will resume.
The Sydney Kings make a little bit of a run, then the Melbourne Tigers readjust the defense or change it. Sometimes they drop back into a zone, other times they go to a man. The Sydney Kings in the first half had a hard time adjusting to that changing defense.
Mark Dalton decides to go himself, and it's down. Mark Dalton, the only player, as we said in Game 2, the only player in the Kings roster to have won an NBL championship. It was with Canberra. Sydney's never won one. Sibley, nice moves inside for 2. And Robert Sibley has taken some responsibility in this game at both ends. 60-56. Sibley has pulled down 7 boards, but he's also shooting 8 points, 4 in this quarter.
Tigers now in that matchup zone.
Well, charging foul against Mark Dalton. No doubt about that one.
The Kings are very stagnant on the offensive end of the floor. A lot of people standing around and not getting much mileage out of their offense. Mark Dalton charges right into a stationary Robert Sibley.
Well, I guess that's what happens when the ball carrier is forced to do something himself. 22. Melbourne resumes. They're down by only 4 points after a good little Sydney run at the top of this quarter. Leonard Copeland on McLean. Shot clock winding down inside 10 seconds, and a beautiful shot from Copeland. So now it's 60-58. Sydney still leads. Just over 8 minutes left in this quarter. Well, will this game explode? We've had both teams put on little runs, but no one's been able to get on top, and you get the feeling it's not going to happen until the final seconds. McClary back out to Utah. He's wide. Everyone's wide. Keogh. Shot clock's nearly down, and that's good defense from Melbourne. They forced Sydney into the late attempt, and in the end, no score.
The Kings need a timeout to make the proper adjustments on that matchup zone, because the Melbourne Tigers just have them baffled in what to do on the offensive end of the floor with that defense.
But in Melbourne's case, they've got the individual brilliance of Gaze and Copeland to counter anything. And Copeland gets in, but it's no bucket. Gaze gets it back. And reaching around, Damian Keogh draws another foul. So Keogh has gone to 3 fouls for the game.
Well, that's what you do on defense as a last resort when the person's gone by you. But just about every time when you do that, the referee will make that call, but because it's very difficult and against the percentages that you get it clean.
Sibley, the 1-2 with Copeland, and now it's Dave Simmons. Well, Melbourne have handled themselves extremely well under the pressure of that foul count, and they've now locked it up at 60 points again.
Pretty static offense by the Tigers then, but they got away with it with a great turnaround jumper by Simmons, but they don't seem to be moving much, and there's not much motion down there.
Steve Whitehead about to check in, and he's been one of the active players in offense for the Tigers. Dalton. Well, Sydney not looking much better at the other end, are they? Giddy has got the turnover.
Their offense just looks terrible. The Melbourne Tigers packed into that matchup zone, making the adjustments. The matchup zone has man principles. Whoever's in your area, you just guard him man-to-man.
Nice drive from Giddy, makes it good. 62-60. Melbourne hits the lead. And I noticed on that last Melbourne offense that Damian Keogh is clapping his hands and shaking his head at the players.
He will now miss the motions coming on for the Kings. Tony D'Ambrosis. He'll get some movement there.
McLean shoots. It was going to be, well, it was short. That was why it didn't go down in the end, even though it ran around the rim. So Melbourne get another turnover. And they now have the ascendancy. Giddy. Sibley drives on Utah now. Did Utah have position or what?
That's a block. The only thing the Melbourne Tigers are looking for to see if there was a basket. Billy Mildenhall called that one off. That'll be on Dean Utah.
Side ball.
Well, Steve called it. That's Utah's first foul. Here it is.
Robert Sibley clearly had the ball and both shoulders around Dean Utah before the contact was made.
Timeout is called. Whitehead and the Ambroses have checked in for their respective teams, and we'll be back with more after this. Welcome back live to the Sydney Kingdome. The Melbourne Tigers have just broke from that timeout. We're about to resume the third quarter with just over 6 minutes left, and there's the field shooting percentage. Pretty even, but certainly the Kings a long way down on their Friday night performance when they shot 70 plus. Sibley, Giddy, and that goes to show just how well the Tigers defended on Friday night. 62-60 they lead tonight. And there's another foul picked up against the Kings.
Notice the difference on the offensive ends of the floor for both teams. The Tigers taking it right to the Sydney Kings, and the Sydney Kings are very stagnant, standing around watching people and not making the attacking play that you have to do when you're playing against the zone.
Well, Steve, the only positive in all of that for Sydney is that they are playing downright ugly at the offensive end, yet the difference is only 2 points. That may change marginally soon, but that's always a good sign for a side to launch a platform to get back into the game.
A bit like Melbourne in the first few minutes. They didn't look too good either, but managed to stay in touch. Dean, Lindsay Gaze's thoughts during that timeout?
Well, look, once again, he was resting his players a little bit. A very key time now for the Tigers. Leonard Copeland's having a rest. We see Steve Whitehead in. So Copeland will have a couple of minutes and he'll get back in the game. Then I think you'll find Andrew Gaze will have a rest. He's just going to have to rotate these starters to give them a break.
Well, Copeland's shooting only 13 points. That's pretty well down in his playoff performances so far. Gaze, though, is 21, so he's on target for a decent score. And look at the double teaming on McLean, and it works. Nice move, Whitehead and Simmons. And they fouled Gaze on the way to the bucket.
Very good double team right there by the Melbourne Tigers. Once again, changing their defense. They back into the zone for most of the last few minutes, and then they go out and do that aggressive double team, especially when Dwayne McLean gets it.
Dwayne McLean's doing a lot of talking to Billy Mildenhall in this quarter. Just about every call, there's a conference. As Andrew Gaze tries to make it 100% still, and he does. Andrew Gaze shooting 7 from 7 from the free throw line today. Make it 8 from 8. And now a handy 5-point lead for the Melbourne Tigers. They deserve it. Sydney's got to crank it up a bit if they're going to stop this run. And in this quarter already, 5 team fouls up against Sydney, none for the Tigers. So that really bad foul count that was hurting them early has been negated somewhat as Utah goes for the inside shot and misses. Keogh luckily picks it up, goes for 3, and it's wide. McClary gets the rebound and is shooting short. So great defense from the Tigers. Sydney shooting nowhere near what it was on Friday. We've got 5 minutes left in this quarter, and Melbourne looking to break out by more than 5. Gaze makes it 3. Well, Melbourne is now starting to put a stamp on this game, taking control. Ken McClary's out, Peter Hill is in. And Sydney will have to do something fast, or Melbourne is going to shake it up.
This is a man who must do it. He must control the floor for the Kings, Damien Keogh. A very undisciplined shot down there, the last trip up the court.
He hasn't shot well from the three-point range at all tonight. He's shooting 1 from 6. Peter Hill goes for the drive, fakes the jumper, and in the end he was just lucky that Warwick Giddy couldn't control that ball. Bob Turner, and why wouldn't he be worried?
Pete Hill guilty right there of going up in the air looking to pass. When you getting that close with nobody on, you got to be looking to score. That's got to be your first option, especially as well as he shoots the basketball.
Sibley is up, and the charging foul on Utah. Well, Sydney has hit the wall. Utah.
The Melbourne Tigers have made some great adjustments on defense right here. They know that Dean Utah likes to lean in when he comes in. off of the baseline, and the defensive position was right there. So they're making the proper adjustments on the defense, and the Sydney Kings have to do the adjustments on the offensive end if they're going to get back into this ball game.
68-60, the Tigers lead. Whitehead, beautiful shot. Bigger safe move, but the shot didn't come up. I thought it was going to go down, but in the end he gets it back and makes it 2. So the Tigers right on top, 70-60, just over 4 minutes left in this third quarter, and the Kingdom trying to lift their team. Hill can't sink the shot. Sydney cannot buy one at the moment.
We've got a problem down here with David Simmons. It looks like he's got a finger in the eye, and he's just gone to the bench for the moment.
You wanted it. You got it.
But that's a bit of a blow for the Tigers. And Leonard Copeland making his way back into the game for David Simmons. Tigers going very small.
Right there, Andrew Gaze was saying to Eddie, we had a fast break, but just before they got the possession, Andrew was asking for a player timeout because David Simmons was hurt.
Whitehead, another of those drives. He's had a good game. And Giddy puts it down. The Tigers by 12. So, Melbourne, this is by far the best run of the game. Bob Turner's called a timeout, and why not? Not only have Melbourne got the run, but they're looking great. We'll go to a break. Back with more of the third quarter after this. Live at the Sydney Kingdome, and how close are the Kings to the end of 1992. They are down by 12 against the Tigers. They've just had a real run put on them. Brett Rees has been with that timeout, which was called by Bob Turner. Before we do, Hill misses the three-point shot, and D'Ambrosius wins the rebound. The offense resumes. Brett Rees.
It was all defense, defense, defense. Pick up the intensity. He was actually yelling at the guys rather than instructing them. It was a very vocal Bob Turner as Tony D tries to bridge the gap. Noah Travel.
Well, nothing going right for Sydney, but then again, chalk it up to Melbourne's defense. Dean Temple and Lindsay Gaze can't be too unhappy with that.
No, but he's still aware that both teams are tired out there, and you can see that. Offensively, he wants them to keep taking them at them, just like that. Penetrate and dish. Defensively, they're going to keep mixing it up.
It's worked very well tonight. As Dean explained earlier, switching from zone to full court pressure and back again. Swapping around the lineups has really hurt Sydney, confused them. Utah did well to get in there, and finally, Sydney scores.
In the last couple of possessions, the Sydney Kings have looked much better with ball movement and players cutting, and that's a good sign for the Sydney Kings. Although they're 10 points down, it doesn't look like their doomsday offense that allowed the Melbourne Tigers to have a 12-0 run.
And that was their first score in 4 minutes as well.
Beautiful moves, Leonard Copeland. He's just hurt his ankle there, and I hope it's not serious. It doesn't look good, but he's in a lot of pain at the moment.
Leonard Copeland down, and you heard the crowd roar. That's really poor sportsmanship by the Sydney crowd. You hate to see somebody go down with an injury.
Let's have a look at how it happened. He made a beautiful drive to the bucket. Nice moves. He was in midair for a long time. The ball went down, and it must have been the way he landed that did it.
Well, Dean Uthoff was standing in the way. We couldn't see exactly what happened. See if we can get another angle.
Well, he's heading towards the bench. Whether he'll come off, surely he'll have to come off.
See, from this angle, you can see him land, and you can see the ankle, the left ankle roll over right there.
Yep. He's rolled his left ankle. Dean Templeton will keep an eye on it for us, of course, as Leonard gets it checked out. The team physio's there.
Well, if he doesn't have it taped, I'm sure he'll have it retaped, and he'll be out there in a few minutes.
Well, if he's got any chance of all of getting in the game, Sydney down by 12 after that move.
They're just taking him into the locker room for a little bit more treatment, but I'm sure we'll see him back.
Yep, well, could be the last game of the season if he doesn't buy into it. Sydney makes it a 10-point game again, but gee, Melbourne are finding it. Blocking foul against Dean Uthoff, and he's not happy with the call as Robert Sibley clashed with him. He goes to 3 fouls, Dean Uthoff, and the game has really turned in that area. Would you believe, after the foul count was badly against Melbourne early on, Sydney now lead the foul count 19-18, and we've got Keogh in trouble with 4 fouls.
Dean wasn't actually arguing there, Bill, about the call. He was arguing that Robert Sibley had no way to put the shot up. I don't think he realised the team foul situation.
Yeah. But it's 2 shots anyway. Sibley's missed the first. And and makes the second. And look at that, 2 minutes left in the third quarter, and Melbourne have not registered a foul in this quarter yet. So not only has their defense been tight, it's been clean. Utah picks it up, but he's been alienated on the corner of the perimeter. And here's Gaze on the breakout. Oh, Melbourne looking good, but he's missed it. Well, McLean to D'Ambrosis. Heavily fouled by Giddy. Oh, travel first. The fans don't like it, but Sydney.
But he did walk, Bill.
Yep. I was watching Warwick Giddy flying over the top. I didn't see his feet, but no complaints from the players. Here it is.
Dwayne McLean kicks it to him right there. You can see him slide his pivot foot. He did travel.
Yep, big shuffle.
And the last 2 times Tony has had the ball in crucial situations, he's traveled. This pressure might be getting to him a little bit. These are big plays. And that was a basket that the Sydney Kings definitely had to have. It could be a 4 or 5 point turnaround.
It's hard to believe a guy like Andrew Gaze, who can shoot 3-pointers from anywhere, can miss a lay-in on his own.
Yeah, amazing. But fortunately for the Tigers, they got the ball back anyway. So it came to nothing. But yes, there's no shortage of surprises in this game. Oh, well, D'Ambrosis didn't expect the pass. Sydney just all over the place on offense. Hill can't put the shot down. Melbourne looking to make this game safe in the third quarter. David Simmons. Robert Sibley fires it in. Giddy had no one on him, and it's easy. Melbourne 77, Sydney 64, the biggest lead of the game to date. They're up by 13, the Tigers. We've got 52 seconds left in this quarter. Ken McClary and Tim Morrissey walk on, and Bob Turner, well, I guess he's just got to keep rearranging the lineup because they're not doing anything. McLean, and he moves in and scores. Well,
you can see the look on his face. He's got that look where he's going to take over. Even though they're in the zone, he's the man. And they're going to have to go to him. He's going to have to produce big because they've got a deficit to come back from.
Dwayne McLean is shooting 18 points in this game. Gaze faked the 3-point shot, and he's been picked up for the travel.
Well, that's 2 very uncharacteristic mistakes by Andrew Gaze. The missed layup and the travel right there.
Well, this is a critical time for the Tigers. Had they not made a couple of errors, they could have well and truly buried Sydney in this quarter. Time ticking down, and Sydney may just be able to save a bit of face in the dying seconds. McLean's chewing those up right now. And Steve Whitehead is hoping to make sure he doesn't get a shot. Keogh for 3. It's down! So Sydney have cut the gap to 8, and the quarter is over. That went off the rim, and Sydney will go to a break. Back in the game, the Kings, but just. Stretch, the final quarter, and you're live at the Kingdome for this third deciding semi-final between Melbourne and Sydney. Warwick Giddy drives to the bucket. And this is a critical time for the Kings. If they want to get into this game, it'll have to be soon. The Tigers lead by 77 to 69. They had a big 13-point break in the third quarter, but for a 5-point turnaround late in that quarter as Simmons goes for the hook shot. Sibley pulls down the rebound, but no basket and a turnover. A little 5-point run by the Kings just turned the game fractionally at the end of that quarter, and now they've got to really crank it up. But Steve Carfino, I know you think that there's only one man who can alter the complexion of this game in Sydney's favour, as we see the turnover count there favouring the Kings. And you think that that man is Dwayne McLean.
Yeah, the man with the ball right there. He's got to generate some offense, draw a couple of people to him if he's not going to score himself.
McClary goes inside. It's down. So Sydney have narrowed the gap to 6.
And while the Sydney Kings had that run on them by the Melbourne Tigers, that 12-0 run, Kenny McClary was sitting on the bench, so he could be a key figure too.
Andrew Gaze carrying a sore knee, which he picked up, although he's had knee problems for quite a while now. He's going to have an operation eventually. Gaze is been a fantastic player for his team. 26 points tonight. Leonard Copeland, they've kept him a little quiet, but who knows in the final quarter as he misses that shot. McClary, Sydney got the breakout. They've got numbers. Keogh went for the hole, nearly travelled. McClary gets it in and misses. Well, Sydney have simply got to put those buckets down if they're going to get back in this game. And McClary's been pinged for the foul as he wrestled with Andrew Gaze.
Poorly executed 3-on-1 break. Once again, the Sydney Kings bunched together, not spreading it out, making the defender decide whether to pick the basketball up or play the pass. He was able to guard all three people at the same time because they're so close together.
Lindsay Gaze is quickly thrown. No, he's considering, yes, he's thrown Steve Whitehead into the game. Here he is now with the 1-2 with Gaze. And Tim Morrissey is on Whitehead at the moment. Whitehead's had a big game. He goes all the way across the arm. McLean fouls him on the way through, and Sydney's foul count now is climbing pretty high. We've got Keogh on 4. He's not having a happy game anywhere, in fact.
Nice drive to the basket by Whitehead. You can see Dwayne McLean get him across the arm, but the Sydney Kings are going to have to try and contain these Melbourne Tigers, because if you overplay them too much like Tim Morrissey did there, it gives them a direct passage to the basket. You put your defense at a disadvantage, because then it draws help, and then the ball can be worked around for a possible shot.
Lindsay Gaze. Steve Whitehead misses the first but makes the second and puts his team ahead by 7 points. A lot of basketball left in this match, but at the moment the Melbourne Tigers looking good. Hill. Sydney's three-point shooting has let them down today as well. Keogh has shot 2 from 7. McLean has got 1 out of 1. Dalton 1 out of 1, but Hill's made none from 4. McClary misses the shot inside. Kenny McClary has shot 12 points tonight, but he's missed his last 2.
Right now, Dean Uthoff would be useful. And
oh, well, that was going to be something else, but it didn't come off. And that's what Sydney needs right now is the turnover. McLean gets it up the other end, and it's a 5-point game. And as Steve Carfino called it, Dean Uthoff was about to check in as Whitehead brings it back down court for the Tigers.
On those missed shots by Kenny McClary, Dean Uthoff usually has himself planted there and has a pretty good shot at putting the ball back into the basket for a second shot.
Here's Simmons with space, goes for the hook, and is fouled on the way to it. Kenny McClary's picked up the foul again. He goes to 3 fouls.
Number 7, the man
Dean Uthoff comes into the game right now.
Also, Peter Hill probably taken off the court. He had a couple of opportunities to shoot the three-pointer, but was a bit reluctant, and that's not what Bob Turner needs now.
Well, he's lost confidence by the sound of it, because, as I said, he's made none from 4. And Sydney really in a critical situation here. Down by 7 points.
With Peter Hill out of the game, that takes the Sydney Kings with only one true shooter out there, Damian Keogh, and they might really pack into this zone now with that lineup of the Sydney Kings out there.
McClary, beautiful reject from Dave Simmons. Sydney will get it back, but things like that don't do your confidence the world of good, especially when you're struggling to buy a basket. McClary. McLean this time draws the foul. And at least can afford a smile with Andrew Gaze. And that's who the foul is against. Andrew Gaze has cranked up 3 fouls. And there's his father on the sideline.
Very rarely does Andrew Gaze get in foul trouble. We talked about adjusting to how the referees call the game, and he's very good at doing that.
He reads the game so well, and so does this man, McLean, who sinks it. Sydney are now down by 6 points, but they've been behind for quite a while in this game.
That shot just before the end of the quarter, that three-pointer by Damian Keogh was so big because it got the margin down to single figures as Dwayne McLean pops the second one in, and it's only a 5-point deficit.
The Tigers on offense, and Dean Templeton, do you think that fatigue will have much to do with this final quarter with 9 minutes left?
Well, I think both teams look pretty tired. The Tigers have got to keep penetrating, keep being aggressive in offense. I am a little bit concerned about Leonard Copeland. He's very proppy on that ankle. We see Robert Sibley taking to the hoop. That's what the Tigers have got to do. Draw the fouls, get to the foul line and shoot the hoops. But it's going to be a real war of attrition, this one.
They're doing it well, too.
So right here on the drive right there, Robert Sibley just a little too quick for Dean Uthoff on that move right there, and that might be a matchup problem for the Sydney Kings.
Utah has 4 fouls and only 10 points. It's an uncharacteristic game for him. Well, Sibley sends them to an 82-75 lead. As Dean said, they've been working well on offense and drawing the foul from Sydney. Well, the Kings just at a loss as to how they can penetrate this Melbourne defense. And if Dwayne McLean's going to buy into this game, he'll have to do it soon before the score gets into double figures at a time that they can't handle it. Here's Simmons. Good offense from Melbourne, but Utah pulls in the defensive rebound. So Sydney managing to stay in the game.
Melbourne probably made one too many passes right there. Dwayne McLean launches a 3. It's just off. Tim Morrissey with a good offensive rebound.
Keogh.
Still not getting much out of their offense. They're doing a lot of standing. They need to make some cuts and reverse the basketball around.
Too right. There was only one player moving as McClary tries a very difficult shot, but there wasn't any choice. He wanted the foul, but instead Melbourne get the turnover. Sibley, this will be easy. So Melbourne break out again, 84-75, and they're looking good for a grand final berth with 7 minutes 45 left on the clock in this final quarter. Sydney have got to find some sort of answers. Tim Morrissey, no one's moving. Morrissey forced into the shot, he makes it. It's 84-77, but Melbourne still on top.
Nice shot by Tim Morrissey, but you get the feeling the players out there for the Sydney Kings don't want to take the shot. They don't want to be the one to miss. This is a big game and a lot of pressure on each shot. Somebody's got to step up and take up that responsibility.
Surprising that McLean's not doing it. Sibley gets in. Great work from Robert Sibley. He's had a big game and he's pumping up the players too. 86-77. This is Dwayne McLean. Circles the defense. And it's knocked down, but McClary wins the rebound and puts it in. And potential three-point play.
Big play. The Sydney Kings have got to do something to try and get their crowd into the ball game. The Melbourne Tigers doing a great job at silencing this sellout crowd.
Yep, the crowd was a big factor on Friday, and you get the feeling that they're just backing off a little bit today, the Kings fans, because they sense their team is just not performing. 86-79.
Basically, they haven't had a whole lot to cheer about since the Sydney Kings haven't had any success going into that zone, penetrating that zone of the Melbourne Tigers.
McClary shoots short, way short, and Whitehead will bring it back for the Tigers. They lead by 7 points. McLean trying hard to get that ball from Steve Whitehead. In the end, they leave Simmons, and now Copeland free. Fakes the three-point shot and gets inside, but it doesn't go down. McClary's rebound. Breakout for Sydney. McLean nearly loses it, but goes up and misses the shot. Oh, heavy crash there, and the foul is against Tim Morrissey. He tried to avoid it. Melbourne will get it from the side, and nothing going right for the Kings.
That look by the Kings. Dwayne McLean, after some slick moves there, misses the shot that he almost always makes. And then you see right here Tim Morrissey, after that one, pushes Robert Sibley out of bounds. Robert Sibley will go to the line with a 1-and-1.
Well, Melbourne have got Gaze and Sibley with knee injuries. Copeland's turned the ankle and is still limping slightly. But all the momentum is with them, and you can tell the way they're geeing each other up. They can sense a grand final berth here today. Sibley misses the first of the 1-and-1s. Tim Morrissey gets the ball. Now McLean. What can Sydney do to get into this game? McLean all the way. And great defense from the Tigers, but Sydney lucky to get the ball back. McLean again. And this time he gets it from. So the margin is 5 points. Somehow Sydney is staying in contact with the Tigers. Brent Rees, how are they taking it on the Sydney bench? Well, that's brought the crowd to its feet. Turnover time. We'll go to Brent in a minute. Morrissey got a hand in there and somehow came off Leonard Copeland before it went over the sideline, and Lindsay Gaze has just asked for a timeout. Brent, how are they coping?
Well, I was just going to say, without a word of a lie, there's 4 or 5 players chewing their nails simultaneously at the moment.
Yep, well, there's another turnover. So both teams turning the ball over pretty frequently now, and Lindsay Gaze gets that timeout. So Melbourne Tigers lead 86-81, and we'll go to a break as well. Back for the last 5.5 after this. Lindsay Gaze, perhaps his team is Tigers headed to the grand final of the Mitsubishi Challenge. They lead by 5 over the Kings. That's not a big margin if you know anything about basketball, with 5 minutes 40 left on the clock, but they are looking very good, and Sydney doesn't have many options at the moment. Melbourne on offense looking to make it 7 or maybe more. Robert Sibley has had a big final quarter, has done it again, and he's really happy about that. Sibley is shooting 17 points, but he has come into this game so strongly in the last minutes. He's pulled down 8 boards as well, 6 of them on defense, which has been a big factor. Tim Morrissey on offense, Dean Templeton, Lindsay Gaze called that timeout.
Yes, he got the boys, he's trying to give them a bit of a rest. It's like a casualty department down here. All the players are limping, they're sore, but they're keeping on going. Robert Sibley is exploiting Dean Utop every time in offense, and as long as Utop's out there, the ball will be going to Sibley and he'll be working that one-on-one.
Well, no basket counted there. Melbourne get the turnover. Sydney looking awful. They're down by 7 points, and for viewers in Eastern States, just a reminder, Healthy, Wealthy and Wise will not be shown this afternoon, but it can be seen at 7:30 p.m. tomorrow night around the network. So the fans of that show, don't worry. You'll see it tomorrow night at 7:30. At the meantime, Sydney looking far from Healthy, Wealthy and Wise at the Kingdome. McClary pulls down the rebound and Keogh breaks out. And Gaze robs him of the ball. And a travel called against Keogh. Against Gaze, I'm sorry.
Another missed opportunity by the Sydney Kings. They get the basketball back there, but that was a 2-on-1 break, and you've always got to score a layup on a 2-on-1 break. And that's 3 fast breaks that the Sydney Kings haven't executed on.
McClary gets in. And 2 free shots.
And now the free throw situation becomes crucial. We talked about it all year, the Sydney Kings from the free throw line, and this is when the season's on the line. Let's see how they go.
And they're shooting 60% as a team. Melbourne Tigers shooting 74%. But perhaps more importantly, Kenny McClary is shooting none from 2. He's got 1.
It's a good shot. These free throws are big.
And this is the second, but maybe it'll be a 3-point play. Will it be 4? No, Keogh can't buy one from out there today. Whitehead on the breakout. Keogh trying to isolate him, but he gets around him and draws the foul. Keogh has now racked up 5 fouls for this game. It's not a happy game for him. He's shot 8 points, 3 from 11 from the field, and only 2 from 8 from his specialty 3-point range. So now the Melbourne Tigers looking to make it a bigger margin. Mark Dalton is on for the Kings.
Like Dean Templeton said, it looks like a morgue out there, or what could be a morgue. Andrew Gaze is limping around. Leonard Copeland, the same thing, but I'm sure they have enough juice to finish this game out.
And they can sense the victory too, Melbourne. They're right on top. And Steve Whitehead cuts, or I should say expands the lead to 7 points.
The Tigers might have plenty of firepower in their roster, but defensively you cannot fault this side tonight.
They've done a great job.
I just wonder if the South East Melbourne Magic are enjoying watching this, because of course they're going to play the winner, and this is really a war, and these guys are going to be sore, whoever wins this game.
Yeah, that's for sure. And at the moment it looks like Melbourne, they're coming away with the ball after yet another Sydney turnover, and Sibley gets inside for a bucket. Another great move from the Melbourne Tigers, and they're really in front now. Well, McLean can't even get a clean shot off, but he miraculously gets that through and keeps Sydney within some reach. They're down by 7, and now they're full court pressuring the Melbourne Tigers. They really have no option. We've got only 3 minutes 49 in this game. The Tigers on top by 7. McLean, turnover, but he can't convert it now. Copeland's got the ball on the ground. How's Mildenhall going to read this one? Well, he's called Leonard Copeland for a travel.
Right here, Dwayne McLean, good effort there, dives for the basketball. Kenny McClary loses the ball. Good pick by Stephen Whitehead right here. This is where Tim Morrissey and Leonard Copeland go for it right here. And this is when he calls the travel, when he rolls over.
Well, McClary felt he should have got a foul call against when he picked up that ball. But anyway, Sydney get it. And McLean misses. Well, Sydney are not doing it on offense tonight. Gaze brings it back and just settles the thing down. Now he goes all the way, and McClary fouls him heavily. Well, Sydney, they're getting the opportunities, but they're not shooting. They're down to 41% from the field, but McLean's shooting 9 from 26 from the field.
Right there, Andrew Gaze holds him off with his left hand, gets the body contact. He'll go to the line.
We'll go to a break. The timeout call. Melbourne Tigers lead 91-84 in the third and deciding semi-final. Melbourne Tigers back on court at the free throw line. Are they championship bound? Andrew Gaze certainly hopes so. And a rare miss for Gaze, but his team leads by 7 with 3 minutes 20 on the clock. Dean Templeton, there must be an air of confidence at that end of the court.
Oh, not yet by any means. They're still very worried about what could happen in this game. They want to keep the pressure on. Offensively, they're expecting some defensive pressure from the Kings. They want to penetrate, drive, dish, and just draw the fouls. Brent Rees.
Well, Bob Turner was just basically sitting back as all the players were saying, we've got time, and that's quite true. I mean, in 30 seconds you can have a couple of turnovers and suddenly it's a three-point game. So this game far from over.
Well, a jump ball here, but Sydney just having so much trouble scoring. Peter Hill's about to check into the game for Tim Morrissey. Lindsay Gaze looking at the last 3 minutes of this semi-final series, and his team leads by 8. Sydney ball. Peter Hill fakes the three, hasn't made one all night. And nice steal from Leonard Copeland. Well, that's it. The story of the game to date. Melbourne just doing it better on defense. Andrew Gaze pirouettes around Hill. Now Dalton on the double team and back with Sibley, and now Gaze again. 3-point, no, it's Sibley. And Whitehead is in for 2. They're just too good. 94-84. The Melbourne Tigers up by 10 and 2.5 minutes left. And you can see the frustration etched on the faces of the Kings as they lose it yet again.
Well, not only are they unable to force the turnovers at the defensive end, they're not converting up their end. So with every trip up the court, they're falling further and further behind. You cannot afford to do that.
Bob Turner looking at perhaps the last 2 minutes, 25 seconds of the championship season. Dwayne McLean for 3. He makes it. Sydney cuts the gap to 7.
Now this is important right here. They've got to get a stop. And there's a lot of time on the clock. You don't have to start fouling yet. They've got to get a couple of possessions where the Tigers don't score and not just look for the 3 every time down, because the 30-second clock will make the Tigers shoot. They have to have at least 4 more possessions.
Well, Melbourne Tigers are shooting 70% from the free throw line tonight. So there's no reason why they can't make at least half the 1-and-1s. So Whitehead makes it. He's looking at 2 now. And the gap is back out to 8. So at the moment, Melbourne have got a firm grip on this game.
Melbourne's doing a good job because every time they go down the floor, not only are they using up the clock, but they're getting good shots. And as long as they score, they can't be beat.
They lead by 9. Dalton fakes the 3. Peter Hill is going inside to the baseline, but there's just nowhere else to go. And it's another turnover. Well, at this stage, it looks like an all-Melbourne grand final in the NBL, because Sydney just cannot make things happen in the semi-final decider. Whitehead fouled by Dwayne McLean. And this is all the Tigers need to seal the game from the free throw area. They can stand there and put these down all night.
Well, the Tigers will be very happy if the Kings want to keep fouling Stephen Whitehead. He's about a 73% career free throw shooter, and he's been very deadly during this series.
And no mistake now. The Tigers lead by 10, and there's under 2 minutes left, and Lindsay Gaze can finally afford to sit back and relax. Well, he misses the second, but it's academic. 10 points the Tigers lead by, and now the scoreboard, that is the time clock, is well and truly against the Sydney Kings. Dwayne McLean forced into the low percentage shot.
This game is not over.
That was only for 2 points, though. He wanted the 3. There's 8 points in the game. Whitehead on McLaren.
One of Val Simmons.
Perimeter passing. Melbourne have got the time on their side as well as the scoreboard. Simmons inside. Sibley completely unmarked, but he doesn't make the shot, and Sydney gets the rebound. Peter Hill. Can they cut the gap down and make Melbourne sweat in the dying seconds? Dalton. Keogh for 3. It's down! left in a full court pressure. Turnover, McLean. McClary loses it. And again, Sydney will get the ball.
They've got to get a good shot here. Right here, Dwayne McLean kicks it to Ken McClary. Good play by David Simmons right there. They've got to get a good shot here. They don't have to get a three. Somebody's got to come to the ball.
McClary out to Damien Keogh. What a time for Keogh to sink a three. McLean for three! McLean has made it a two-point game. They've got to watch the transition, Sydney, as Whitehead comes back down the pump fake. Hill fouls him. No option. So, Melbourne leads by 2. And this is not a 1-and-1. Melbourne get the 2 free throws. So even if they miss the first, they get a chance. Lindsay Gaze is suddenly standing again.
Sydney Kings asking for a timeout. What a comeback.
The timeout is called, and you've got to ask the question, Steve, why Sydney, in typical fashion, has left it so late to make their run on this game.
Well, they didn't really have any choice. The Melbourne Tigers have been outplaying them for most of this match. They've put the zone defense on them. They haven't had an answer for it. The Sydney Kings come back with some desperation shots. Credit the Melbourne Tigers, putting the Sydney Kings in a desperate situation, but pretty lucky for the Kings that they've had some of those shots drop.
Well, it was overdue. Lindsay Gaze there laying down the law. Bob Turner is obviously, he's got the old clipboard out, and he's obviously scheming now to try and set up a situation where Sydney can come away. Bearing in mind, it's only a 2-point game, but Melbourne are on the free throw line. So, well, there's still 44 seconds left, nearly 45. The calculations are many.
The shot clock is going to play big right here because the Melbourne Tigers are on the free throw line. The Sydney Kings want to come down. They want to make sure they get a good shot. It doesn't have to be a three. It doesn't have to be a desperation shot. They're going to get a couple of possessions, and they want to give their defense a chance to get a steal because Melbourne's not playing to score at this moment. They're playing against the clock, and so that's a good situation to try and get a steal.
So, Lindsay Gaze, Steve Whitehead, he's shooting 55% from the free throw line. That's not a good stat for him. He's normally a lot better shooter than that, but he's going to go to the line right now. That was for the Sydney Kings coming back from that timeout.
And Sydney this year, I think from memory, are 6-2 in games that have been decided by 3 points or less.
Cool shot from Stephen Whitehead. Just gives Melbourne a little more breathing space. It's a 3-point game. And here's pressure. Nice work, Steve Whitehead. He puts the Tigers in front by 4, but Sydney have the ball. They've got to score from this offense. Keogh, oh, it doesn't go. He gets the rebound, but it goes to Simmons, and now Whitehead. Melbourne can wrap it up here. Gaze, they're chewing up time. Giddy, Copeland. Melbourne just pushing it around the court. They're going to be beaten by the game clock here. Giddy's lost it. Sydney will get the ball from the side, but now Melbourne have chewed up valuable time, and that could be the deciding factor.
Well, it doesn't matter whether it's a 2 or 3. They've got to make 2 shots.
Dwayne misses the shot. Heavy call. Now Copeland holds it up. Gaze is fouled. And with 9 seconds on the clock, Gaze will go to the free throw line. Well, Sydney just left it too late. They made it exciting for the fans.
Replay right here. Andrew Gaze gets tripped up by Peter Hill. Nothing in it there. He had to foul him, and Andrew Gaze goes to the line. And put the icing on the cake.
And he puts it down. Melbourne out by 5, and they deserve this, and Gaze is really pumped. Melbourne is celebrating already. The bench is up, the fists are waving, and Gaze gives Melbourne a 6-point lead, and Sydney can do very little about that. Keogh for 3. He misses, and Melbourne are going to sink this, or at least sit this out. Whitehead goes down, and Melbourne Tigers are into the NBL Grand Final against South East Melbourne Magic, and the scenes of jubilation at the Kingdome. Melbourne have done it against the odds in the sense that Sydney squared the series on Friday. They had the momentum going into the decider and they had the home court advantage, but Melbourne have simply outplayed them. Great defence. Gaze and Copeland. Gaze in particular with 29 points has done a marvellous job. And Melbourne are going somewhere they haven't been for a long, long time. An NBL championship final. Bob Turner, the dejection, because his team has shot only 42%, but more importantly, the turnovers they gave away were numerous. And some of their star shooters, like McLean, who shot 12 from 30, 40%, most unusual for him. Damien Keogh shot 4 from 14 and only 3 from 10 from the three-point area. On the other hand, Melbourne Tigers key men have made it good, and particularly their defense, Steve.
That's right. The Melbourne Tigers, they really outplayed the Sydney Kings in this series. The Sydney Kings had to shoot 74% from the field and still just barely beat the Melbourne Tigers. They made the adjustments. They made the Sydney Kings do things that they didn't want to do, take shots in areas that they didn't want to take them, and they deserve to win it.
Well, the season is over for Sydney. They stand in centre court now for their last huddle and a wave to the fans who've been so good to them all year. Sell-out crowds, one after the other. But they just couldn't come up with the play on the night. They were a little flat after game 2, and Melbourne Tigers were able to crank it up and pinch the game in the final quarter. We'll go to a break now and wrap up this semi-final series. Congratulations to Andrew Gaze and the Melbourne Tigers. They have made the final of the Mitsubishi Challenge against South East Melbourne Magic, which will all happen next weekend. And Andrew, the great man himself, is sidelined with Dean Templeton.
Drewy, mate, it's a pretty emotional time. What a great game and a really gutsy effort by the Tigers.
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, you know, we really had our backs to the wall in this game. We thought we really had to win it on Friday because the crowd, as you could tell from the game, they were really into it. But we stayed really composed. And when you think of the adversity we had to overcome, you know, I don't want to make this into a melodrama sort of thing, but, you know, Robert Sibley's playing on one leg, and that last quarter, I mean, he would have had 10-something points, very, very crucial points, and just, you know, it's inspirational stuff.
The game really started off and it was a low-scoring affair, very physical, as I'm sure you know, because you spent a lot of time on the floor. And I suppose that you felt that that was what Sydney wanted the game to be, and you really fought hard to get that break.
Well, we thought in the up-tempo game that we tried to play on Friday that Dwayne McLean excelled in that. And so we just packed it in. And, you know, they shot 75%, phenomenal percentage on Friday, and we thought, well, if they're going to beat us, they're going to do it from the perimeter. So we just tried to pack it in the zone, and it paid off. You know, we played 95% of that game in the zone defence, and we haven't done that all year. So, fortunately, it come out for us.
Yeah, it certainly did seem to work well. It really was a case of the walking wounded, though. You had yourself out there limping around. Leonard came down after a big hoop and hurt his ankle. You had Sib. Simo did a great job. Really fantastic effort by all the guys to find something extra.
Yeah, well, like I said before, you know, it's just this sort of team. We've been around together for a while. We've got a couple of new faces this year, but we've been doing it too long, and these opportunities really might only come by once. So, you know, we laid it all on the line here tonight, and, you know, hopefully we can carry on. It's going to take a lot to settle us down from this win because this was huge. But obviously Magic in the grand final is going to be probably even tougher again. But hopefully, you know, we're ready for it, and this is certainly a very tough preparation that we've had.
What about this Sydney crowd? Wasn't that something special when Stephen was at the foul line? He couldn't hear himself think.
I tell you, I've played in a couple of countries throughout the world, but
just a
few. That was a very, very loud crowd, and to their credit, you know, the Sydney fans were fantastic. They did the right thing by the team and, you know, tried to bring them home, but fortunately for us, they were there, and I think that they gave us the respect which we deserve for that type of win.
Now, what about for next week? Obviously, you've got to go home and get yourselves fit, and then you've got to start thinking about the Magic. Right now, of course, you're on a high, and I'm on the same flight as you guys, so please don't make too much noise.
Yeah, well, we're going to celebrate this one. You know, I see Brian Goorjian after the game say, you know, they're not celebrating yet, but I tell you what, we're going to celebrate this one because this was a very, very special win, and, you know, come Tuesday, we'll be back out there training, getting ready for them, but tonight and tomorrow, we're getting in there.
Well, Andrew, I thank you very much for talking to us. It was a really fantastic game. Atmosphere was sensational. I was sitting there chewing my nails, and I know the guys in the commentary box were the same. terrific effort by you and the guys, and a great effort by Sydney too in what was really a great ball game.
Yeah, outstanding. You know, I got to take my hat off to Sydney because they play very, very hard and physical, stuck to their guns. But fortunately for us, we were in a game tonight, we were able to overcome them. But, you know, class team, class outfit, and, you know, you look at the full house here tonight, very strong program.
Best of luck for next week, Drew, and thanks for speaking to us. Guys, back to you.
Congratulations again to Gaze and Gaze, Lindsay and Andrew. Lindsay orchestrating that win. As Andrew pointed out, they had to make some adjustments on from the Friday game, and they did very well.
Yeah, they did very well. Sydney Kings, like Andrew said, the Sydney Kings kind of excelled on that fast break game. Usually the Sydney Kings are the ones who want to wear them down and run that half-court offense, but Dwayne McClain in the open court is very dangerous, and so they noticed that, made the adjustments, came out, slowed the game down, and it worked to their advantage.
Well, they made Sydney shoot from the perimeter, as Andrew said, and Sydney couldn't buy one from the perimeter today.
That's right. It was great. It was a great matchup zone. They went into that matchup zone. The Sydney Kings had no answer for it. Their outside shooting was off, and it looked like nobody wanted to take the responsibility and take over on the offensive end for the Kings. Credit to the Melbourne Tigers, that's for sure.
Well, let's have a look at the stats for this match, and they're pretty close all the way down, really.
Well, it was a tough game, very physical, and a lot of pressure going. Even though there were 2 games played already, the conclusion of the series, do or die situation, puts a lot more pressure on your shots. As you see right there, 44% and 42. That's not very good shooting percentage, especially with 2 good teams like that. And free throws, 74% to 62. Rebounds, very close right there, but the Sydney Kings just got them, and then 18 to 15 the turnovers.
And the foul count as well finished up pretty well even. 30 fouls to Sydney. Oh, beg your pardon. 30 fouls to Sydney. Gee, they got away in the end, didn't it? 22 to the Tigers. And early in the game, the Tigers were in a lot of foul trouble as a team, and we thought that was going to be a big factor.
Well, I felt that the Sydney Kings were worried a little bit too much about the referees' decisions and not playing good basketball.
Top scorers now, and Dwayne McClain, he tried so hard to lift his team with 34 points, but after that, it was pretty tough to get in there. Kenny McClary, Mark Dalton, Damien Keogh, Dean Utoff, all in the low teens. Andrew Gaze, a solid game for the Tigers. He missed a lot of shots, but then they were marking him tightly, you must remember. 29 points, but then here's where the Tigers really won out. Robert Sibley, tremendous last quarter, 19 points, and remember, on that bung leg, Whitehead with 18 points. He brought into the game in a good way. And Leonard Copeland, of course, way below his average, particularly for the playoffs. He's been shooting around 30 average, but still a good contribution, considering that he had that ankle injury too. And Simmons was very big on the boards as well as making that 10 points.
Well, that's right. Leonard really excels in the fast court game, the up-tempo style that they've been playing all year, and they really concentrated on taking the game slower and getting the ball into Robert Sibley at the end, and he was isolated with Dean Utoff, and those were some key points, like Andrew Gaze said. Those were some key points that Robert Sibley hit, and so they were going to different people today.
So it'll be an all-Melbourne final. Sydney really wanted the Kings to win because they haven't had much success in sport this year. They haven't done very well. Brisbane won the rugby league, and when you consider it, though, Melbourne really wanted this too because they lost their AFL title to Perth. So anyway, we'll be back with more of the wrap-up of this match after this. Welcome back to the Sydney Entertainment Centre. Well, in case you missed it, the season is over for the Sydney Kings. It'll be an all-Melbourne NBL Championship decider between the Tigers and Sth East Melbourne Magic. But what do the Tigers face now in the weeks ahead? We've got Gaze, we've got a couple of other players, Copeland and Sibley, all carrying injuries, and we're about to see the team that they're going to line up against in the best-of-3 series for the Mitsubishi Challenge. And it is an awesome thing, believe me. The Tigers were, the Giants, I should say, were beaten on Saturday night in the second game of the series against the Magic. So the Magic sealed it in 2, and this is how they did it. The game started off pretty nervously for both teams, but the execution began to lift for the Magic, and they started to get a real grip on this one towards half-time. We'll pick the game up there with the Magic starting to look very good, in particular Darren Perry setting off their offense beautifully.
Giants in the gold, strips Magic in the black. We're away. Magic going to the right of your screen. And Scott Fisher has first possession for North Melbourne. And we are away here at Flinders Park. Johnson with the ball for the Giants.
Well, we've noticed that Borner now into the starting lineup. That's a change. And Dorge matches up better on Borner. So North Melbourne's made the first adjustment from game 1, but the first foul goes against Darren Perry as Pat Reedy rises on his jump shot.
2 shots for Pat Reedy from the free throw line.
So we might look at what they're doing there. They're matching up the Magic a little bit stronger around the basket as we see a replay of that foul starting the Olympic center, Ray Borner, against the other Olympic center, John Dorge. and leaving David Graham to come in off the bench. So they got some good shooters in Graham and Pierce to come in off the bench and fire them up.
And the Giants lead 2-0 early in the piece in this first quarter. Magic with their first charge down court. Darren Perry with the ball. Number 20.
Zone defense right away from the North Melbourne Giants.
Lucas to Rose from two-point territory. In a drop.
Giants going back into a zone to try and challenge the outside shooting. Johnson penetrates and is tripped accidentally by Rose, but he'll pick up the foul nevertheless. So good transition by the Giants.
Here's a replay. The leg just sneaked out there and overwent Johnson. No damage done.
Wasn't a shooting foul either, so the Giants got the ball from the side.
Johnson pass to Reedy. We see Perry matching up Reedy there, which is a bit of a size mismatch. Reedy shoots over the top. Misses. Rebound, John Dorge. Magic away. 2 points apiece. Lucas has the ball knocked out of his hands by Johnson. It'll be a Magic ball from the side.
Well, that's what Bruce Palmer's done. He allows Dorch to match up easier by putting Borner in, but as you suggest, Perry then has to match up against a much taller Pat Reedy.
Bowler. Fisher. Head-to-head. Gives it back to Lucas. There's Rose. Fouls on Maley. Number 24 for North Melbourne.
It's a difficult matchup for Paul Maley because Robert Rose probably has a slight speed advantage. That time Maley not getting quite across. You'll watch him. He'll impede him with his left arm out there. You can see it there on the screen.
Rose passed to the long arms of Dorge. Magic throwing the ball around, looking for an opening. Lucas drives. Great rebound from Bruce Bowler using all his muscle. Tries to put it in, can't. Oh, there's some muscle being used under there. It's a Giants ball. Border to take it from the side. 2 points apiece. 10.5 minutes left in this first quarter here at Flinders Park. Semi-final number 2, Giants v Magic. Fisher takes on Rose, and it's a charging foul against Scott Fisher. 53-42, Magic by 11.
Paul Maley is doing an excellent job on the boards for the Giants. You see another missed shot. Maley really is getting in there, mixing it up, particularly at the offensive end. And he's being the star player at the moment for the Giants.
Perry drives, draws another foul.
Fouls on Leader. I think that's his third foul. And it is. Darren Perry, very aggressive offensively. You can see the bump from the side. It was before the shot, so the ball's brought to the side. That's the 4th team foul on the Giants, so they now move into the penalty situation.
And Parkinson on, replacing Robert Rose for South East Melbourne. Just over 2 minutes left in the second quarter at Flinders Park. Magic in control at the moment. They lead by 11. A chance to extend that lead now. Bolden. Terry. Drives for 2. Rebound, John Dorge. Dorge should plonk it in, and he does. So the Magic race away at the moment. They're in front by 13.
Dorge again outreaching Borner. I thought maybe Dorge got away with a little bit of a push there before the rebound came to him. Just eased Borner underneath the basket and got himself a better rebounding angle.
So the Giants will have to be careful here. Maley. Borner. 2 men guarding Fisher, Boland and Dawes at the moment. Graham gets the pass cleverly inside to Fisher, gets past Boland. Great stuff, Scott Fisher. That was skill and class. 55-44, Magic by 11. Boland. Jump shot. Good defensive work from Maley. Pressured him out of that. Now is a chance for North Melbourne again.
Actually, I think Borner may have even blocked that.
Johnson for 3.
It's a crucial last minute for the Magic. they need to make sure they get a score in there. They'd love to go in with the double-figure advantage if they can. Equally for the Giants, they'd love to keep that margin under 2. Parkinson inside, pushes everybody out of the way, still in there, can't find it. Bolden now fouled by Borner.
I think there was much question about that one.
No, but there was some very good pushing and shoving going on by both sides through that sequence. I think Parkinson pushed a few out of the way, and that time you can see Borner making sure that Bolden wasn't going to get it, and they'll send him to line with 2 foul shots.
(56-47). Magic by 9. They did lead by 13. Fisher. Mailing. Parkinson does well. Dodge keeps it in play. Now a chance for the Magic. Another turnover against the Giants. Good defensive work from Andrew Parkinson.
Magic will work for a last shot. 20 seconds remaining to play before halftime.
Johnson snapping at the heels of Perry. Trying to get past them, and he does eventually. Perry for 3. Oh, sensational Perry. Oh, 16 points. Last chance for the Giants before the clock goes. Graham for 3 points. And it makes it. Brilliant stuff, David Graham. Basket counts. Oh, and did the Giants need that one? So at half-time here at Flinders Park, South East Melbourne Magic 59 lead the North Melbourne Giants 50.
Well, there they are, highlights of the entire first half of the game between the Magic and the Giants. Don't worry, you'll see more of the second half in just a moment and some stats on that first half break. But in the meantime, let's hear from today's beaten coach, Bob Turner.
Yes, Bob Turner, the coach of the Kings, has won 2 championships, but they just don't come any more disappointing moments than this.
Really don't. I think we had every chance tonight, and we didn't take advantage of them. In the first half, we had times where we were pulling away, and then we let them back. And we kept reminding our guys that this is a very momentum-oriented team, and we got up to a 6-point lead early in the third quarter, and then let them hit it back, and then we had a 17-0 run, and no matter what we did, things didn't work for us. So, you know, you got to live with it. But I think in reality, we came 7th last year. This year we're right in the finals, and the team was picked to come 9th. So, you know, we credit ourselves very well. I want to give the guys, you know, a lot of pats on the back because we did work all year. But, you know, the ball doesn't bounce when it's supposed to be on the final game, and we have to wear it.
What about in that third quarter? I was listening to your timeouts and you continually stressed we are stagnant in offense. Let's get some motion. But the players didn't really respond, did they?
Well, no, we still stood around the perimeter, and that's why we put Tony D'Ambrosio in. He got in there a couple times. He got things happening, and you know, again, we got plenty of open shots. If you watch it, or I was watching it, the shots were there. They just weren't dropping, and you know, then the defense can extend more because we're not hitting the outside shots. And inside, we weren't getting the ball in enough. And when things aren't dropping, it's nothing like the Friday night game when we were shooting 74%.
What about that Tigers defence? We associate the Tigers with a big scoring team, but tonight they really cranked up that defence. Was that something you had anticipated?
Well, it's a final game. You know you're going to play it hard, and that was a little bit disappointing with us. There were times where, you know, we just weren't pressuring the ball like we did on Friday night. And, you know, you can't do that to a team like Melbourne. And then in their defensive end, I mean, they really packed that zone very well. They gave us one shot at it. And Sibley and Simmons and Giddy did a great job on the boards, and Copeland. And if we missed, that was it. And, you know, we weren't hitting.
OK, I can't let you go without a prediction. I know it's a pretty ordinary time, but you've seen South East Melbourne play. They've swept through. Melbourne's played 2 3-game series. The grand final next week, how do you see it?
Well, the Magic are playing very well at the moment, and they're on a roll and feeling pretty good about themselves. The difference between the Magic and Melbourne is Melbourne seems to find a way to be there. And now that they're in their first final, I don't think they'll be overawed. I think they'll be excited about it. It'll be a great series.
OK, commiserations, Bob. A fantastic season. You can't take anything away from the Kings. Bill Woods.
Yes, as Bob Turner pointed out, a poll of the coaches found the Sydney Kings in 9th spot in the pre-season predictions, and they certainly defied that. and they are looking at a long-term thing. Sydney will pretty well take the same roster into 1993, and I think they'll be a threat with a lot of other clubs in a bit of trouble with mid-season changes.
Well, Bob doesn't like to change much, and I think he'll keep pretty much the same lineup, but he's got to get those young players a bit more of a go, because the older players are starting to get old, and you don't want to have a big void when it comes down to the future.
Well, speaking of the future, we've got to look ahead to next week now in this all-Melbourne final. And as we said, the Tigers had a pretty stiff task against the Melbourne Magic. Let's have a look at the stats from that first half of the Magic-Giants game. And we see 59-50 was the score, but the Magic had a pretty fair handle on it, Steve, shooting better from the field, but pretty well dominating all round.
Well, they dominated throughout most of the game. They have a great game plan, and they spread the basketball around. They can go to so many different people, and it just seems like somebody does the bulk of the scoring differently on every night.
Top scorers there, Darren Perry, 16. They've got so many weapons, the Magic. Bolden with 10, Ninnis with 10, Rose with 9. Robert Rose playing a great playoff series, isn't he? Andrew Parkinson, he's also a potential weapon. 5 points. Paul Maley virtually doing it on his own for the Giants, and I think you might see in the second half that trend doesn't change much. Graham Fisher and Leader found it difficult to get into double figures in the entire first half. Well, let's have a look at how the second matched up. Pretty much the same pattern. The Magic, an awesome team to watch.
Giants will come out pressing up. There's two dangers. One is that press and the turnovers in the Magic, and the other is that thought of husbanding the lead, going a little bit negative. That's a bad start for the Giants.
And a magnificent start for the Magic as Scotty Ninnis jams it in for 2. 90-71. Magic back in front by 19 points. Maley's been outstanding. Big arms of John Dorsch.
That's what the danger for the Giants is, that Maley, who's done it all night, will continue to try and do it. He's got to have some assistance offensively.
Bolden inside to Dorsch. Dorsch turns around and drops in 2 more points. So it's 21 the difference. And the Magic again starting the quarter impressively as they did after the halftime break. Dean Templeton.
Well, the Giants were hoping to cut that lead by half in the first 3 minutes, but this is not the start that they wanted. Bruce Palmer's going to have to dig deep into his bag of tricks, and I really think it may be empty right now.
That'll help if they can get a three-pointer to draw this. Daryl Pierce hits his first points for the game, a big 3. They have the ability to fire up from the three-point range.
Rose with the basketball.
Rose playing on 5 fouls. That takes a little bit away from his game offensively, too. He likes to make those incisive drives to the basket. Magic, as they have all night, very deliberate in their offensive build-up. Bolden gets in.
And they're 58% from the field, the South East Melbourne Magic. Fisher, foul should be on Dorsch. It is. Puts his hand up. 4th personal foul for John Dorsch.
First foul in the quarter. 10:39 remaining to play. And the Magic quickly going to a timeout. 20 points the difference here at Flinders Park. 10:39 remaining to play in the game. Don't be asking the coach a question.
No threes was his message.
Yes, that's a pretty good message. Another aspect of the game that we should highlight is the assists. The Magic have 20 assists. It shows how many times they've been able to find those players for the easy baskets compared to 8 for the North Melbourne team.
There's Bruce Palmer. What can he do to help boost his Giants? They're in deep trouble.
They're setting up three-point play that time for Pierce, and he hits his second in a row. A double screen specifically designed to set up Pierce for a three-point shot.
And it's worked twice in the final quarter. So if you're watching at home, don't write off North Melbourne yet. There's plenty of time.
Magic just cannot go negative. As you said, Steve, there's plenty of time for the Giants. They've been a high-scoring team all year long. Excellent three-point shooter, second in the league in three-point shooting. Bolden doesn't get it. Dorsch gets it in and is fouled. So with an opportunity to totally negate that nice three-pointer from Daryl Pierce at the other end.
We saw North Melbourne earlier in the season set an NBL record when they came from 17 points down against Hobart to win a game. So I know they're not playing Hobart tonight, but nevertheless they've shown they can do it this year.
Magic foul shooting 11 out of 19, 58%. Johnson with the three-pointer. They really pulling the plug on them. 3-on-2. Ninnis ahead to Rose. And David Graham and Daryl Pierce teamed together nicely to get the ball out of bounds.
Robert Rose screaming for a foul, but no forthcoming. The Magic have the ball. Ninnis, Perry. Screen set by Dorge. Perry for three. Well, Brian Gorshin said no 3 points. No three-point attempts, but I think he'll take that one, Bill.
8 out of 15 now from the Magic from three-point range. That's an unexpected plus for them. Holden and Fisher and George, and again a scramble for a loose ball off the floor, ends up in the Magic's hands. Perry 5 from 7 from three-point range. Outstanding.
Magic by 22 points. 99-77. Bolden underneath the basket. Gives it to Dawes, but great defensive work from Daryl Pierce. It's a turnover. Here come the Giants. Maley to Graham for three. They really needed that one to drop.
Well, North is shooting, can't afford to shoot every shot from three-point line. Occasionally, they've got to go inside in order just to keep the scoring count ticking over for them. You know, they need to mix in a fair number of three-pointers, but not every shot.
Perry fakes for three. Now to Bolden. Good pass inside to Rose, who somehow gets those arms in a shooting position and puts it in for 2 more points.
Yes, Robert Rose, one of the key players in next week's grand final. You can be sure of that. The Magic went on to lock it up 127-106. It was pretty much the same pattern right till the end. A great performance. And so this is how they will line up next weekend for game 1 of the grand final. South East Melbourne playing Melbourne Tigers Saturday 24th of October. Then they'll go to Friday the 30th of October. And if required, you'll see a game on Sunday the 1st of November. And those games will all, of course, be at Flinders Park. And why not? 2 Melbourne teams in the NBL final. We'll go to a break. Back with more after this. The Melbourne Tigers dressing room is still jumping here at the Sydney Entertainment Centre after their great win over the Sydney Kings in the deciding semi-final game of the playoffs. They're a pumped-up team. That's the way they play a lot on emotion. After the first game in Melbourne, they vowed to lock it up in 2, but Sydney fought back hard in the second bout. And it was a very tense, tight, physical game. Melbourne's defence proving the winning factor in this deciding game, and even a 10,500-seat stadium, chock-a-block, could not stop Melbourne from victory. And they'll now go on to play the Magic in the grand final. For their thoughts on the game, our sideline commentators Dean Templeton and Brent Rees, and I feel Dean is going to be in for a bumpy ride back to Melbourne.
Yes, well, I think I am. I'm actually flying back with the Melbourne Tigers, and I've got a feeling that some of those guys won't need an aeroplane. There's to be so high at the moment, Brent.
Yeah, I was in the Melbourne rooms moments ago, and obviously they are delighted. Didn't get changed for quite a while, celebrating this victory. Their first grand final. In fact, South East Melbourne Magic only been around 1 year, so their first grand final. But what's the relative merits of an all-Melbourne final?
Well, all I know is it's going to be packed houses. It's going to be a very hard ticket to get in Melbourne. Both teams have got great followings. Both play out of the National Tennis Centre for the first time this season, so we can expect maybe league record crowds of 15,000 people. We'll be hoping for that. But you've got to say right now that Magic have got to be favourites going into it. But, by God, Melbourne Tigers find something every game, and that really was an emotional victory today, and Magic are going to have to be on their mettle if they're to win.
Yeah, Andrew Gay's, of course, the key player there. Leonard Copeland next week. The matchups are unbelievable. Bruce Bolden, Robert Rose. It's going to be a crackerjack, but you've got to feel somewhat for the NBL, who would have liked to see Sydney, Melbourne playing in a National Basketball League grand final. Now, that won't be the case. What about today's game? What was the pivotal point? Where did you think the game was won?
Well, I really think that a couple of times the Kings could have got themselves back into the ball game. Big Dean Uthoff struggled a little bit defensively against Sibley, but I really think it was just the overall, I suppose, performance of the Tigers just to find that little bit extra down the stretch. But it really was a terrific game, and I certainly enjoyed it. OK,
thanks very much, Dean. And that's it for me for the year. The Sydney Kings back again next year. Back to you, Bill.
And thanks very much to Brent Rees for his incisive comments all through the season. And the Kings, I guess, wish they were just as incisive in the Keyway today.
Yeah, they got beat by a better team. They went out there, the Melbourne Tigers had a great game plan, and like Dean said, they just seemed to find that little bit extra, and that's what's so important in the playoffs.
Well, it all focuses on Melbourne next weekend, but first, let's have a look at